Hi, I'm Nolan. I've worked in this field for a long time. Well, I guess somewhat literally, but more so metaphorically. I am a sort of private, security-free agent by trade, you see. Or at least, that's the sort of title I've given myself. I'm a taller, more athletic Paul Blart with a chip on his shoulder, an actual gun in my holster. And instead of working for an official company, I'm just some guy that gets paid by people to cart their shit, them, or general square mile footage. I'm a city slicker. I like concrete, bright skyscrapers, and several hundreds of people within my general vicinity at all times. I've usually only accepted small jobs, short-time security. But recently, I got an interesting offer. A small-time tycoon, rich guy, looks like he's been washing his hair in liquidated money, offered me a job. Guard my plot of land, the house on said land, my son, me, all my possessions, and get paid enough money annually to have your 401k before your hair even starts to think about turning gray. Not a bad offer, but said land was deep in southern woods. Now, you're gonna laugh. I've worked in private security, glorified mercenary, take a gun and guard a door bullshit work for a while. I've been online. I've heard enough stories. The woods are a place you don't fuck with. Miles of dense forest, drowning any person in. A place where things have dwelt for a while. Point is, if I were gonna spend a few tons of millions on a compound, dropping it dead in Missouri, is it? I know it's dead on state borders. Oh well, dropping it in Skinwalker City woods. The air around here is so thick with pine trees, I swear smells like someone trying to blot out their new car smell with a cheap air freshener. Except, the smell is more genuine. You know when you feel the scent is so pungent, you can almost cut it with a knife? That's what it felt like, stepping out of the man's squeaky SUV in front of his estate house, as he called it. You know that one place in Argentina? The one where the weird side of the internet says Hitler hit after he fled on a wild goose chase down the Atlantic? Looked similar to that. Almost identical actually. Just give it several hundred light fixtures, shiny new windows, and a bit of a trim up. Boom. The Cazamoth estate house. Not a lot stood out to me. All the lights may be the sort of fear of the dark, turn on all the lamps in the house shit we did as a kid. But on a large scale because you're surrounded by miles of woods. What did seem a bit strange to me though were a few things. The place had a perimeter wall. Understandable. A number of threats such as bears, wolves, hell, the occasional freakazoid in the woods, or the bear could be a cause for alarm. What did seem strange to me was how jagged the pikes were, and the fact that they were wrapped in a whole line of razor wire and barbed wire with light fixtures pointing outside towards the woods. A lot of money just to buy the metal for, at worst, a bear or a drugged hippie, and a lot of power spent for what? Floodlights to see anything coming at all angles? I asked Theodore, the boy's father and my employer, and he just says it's for extra security. Fair enough. What was I gonna do? Tell him he's being overly careful? I'm the kind of guy who sleeps with 5 knives in his room, the door locked, and one eye open. Still, wasn't the security that had me on edge. It was all the claw marks on the outside. That to me were too violent to be from bears. So now that you know the details of my arrival here, things have been weird. I know I said I'm a city slicker, near what, 3 decades in Chicago? Put in the middle of the woods to guard some several hundred square feet in the middle of deep south woods. Surely, anyone would be unnerved. This place though, the town just a few miles down the forest road, the walls of hundreds of thousands of pine trees seemingly drowning any and all life in the endless veil of woods. I'm a man of this craft. Didn't always work in private security. I like the more combative jobs. I like working in this sort of boot and collar work. The warrior mentality. I've had to deal with a lot of people, hundreds of kinds, druggies, dumbasses, do you know who I am? Creepy motherfuckers sitting by the dumpster with a boombox wearing socks? Just socks. Point is, I've experienced shit, a lot of shit. So when the sun started to go down, and the alarms in my head started to tick on, it's not bullshit. One of my jobs is to check the wall. Not too bad honestly. Allows me to get out of the house and get some fresh air. Scan the stone structure that'd make Eastern Berliners get flashbacks and see the lights at night. Nothing too shabby. A week in, I actually had to do actual maintenance on the wall as well. It was midday when I looked on the security cameras and saw the eastern side had a spot where some sort of matted fur was caught. Didn't see it the night before, so I grabbed some tools and hopped on the ATV over there. When I pried it off, some alarms went off in my head. 1. This shit was a pain in the ass to pry off because it made some body armor look like cardboard. 2. If it was this tough, how the hell did it get punctured by the defensive wire? 3. If this was animal skin like I thought, why was the inside as dry and laminated as, say, the underside of a carpet, but still had an organic skin look to it? Theodore said it's nothing. Probably just a bear passed by and some shredded fur got caught on the wire. But it's nearing winter time when the fur would be growing instead of shedding, and shedded fur doesn't have a layer of skin on the inside. Put it in a crate in the security room for later inspection. Do you know what's truly creepy? Sure, a reptilian human bird guy with a Godzilla shriek running at you at 1,000,000 miles per hour. That can be scary. Do you know what's creepy? It's not the bullshit scary stories. It's not really, well, the movie monsters. It's the things that are out of place. I'm not an easily spooked man, but it's not the hobgoblin in the woods that'd freak me out. It's the little girl out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. I was out on a full property check. I used to do this around once every week, mostly because I was unused to the whole, well, like I said, bumfuck miles of suffocating trees. But as I got more used to it, I started patrolling the land every 2 days. I climb on the ATV, I ride out the gates and patrol the long, winding dirt path that the property manager agreed with whoever he bought it from to be his plot's perimeter. Usually, I go shoo off any nicks getting drunk, clear the occasional fallen brush. However, this path runs deep into the woods. I don't know how much Theodore paid for this land, but it runs miles before it loops back around. You ever take a walk into the woods? Feel the calm silence? So tranquil. So undisturbed. In my experience, it's like you're sitting in a canoe on a calm ocean bed, while still, all it takes for you to capsize in the fairly untamed, unsafe woods is one push. One push, and you're drowning in panicking and paranoia. So when I drove up the ATV path and stopped at what I had calculated was the most northern part of Theodore's plot, I took out my binoculars and gazed around. Calm tall grass growing and smothering the trunks of trees. And the trees, when you started passing the point of Theodore's land, it started growing more sparser. But there were still 100 per square foot. Really, this was just an excuse for me to stop, calm my nerves of the forest, and relax. What tipped me over was when I heard someone say, "Woof." And I don't mean, "It's just a fucking dog, Dwight, you dumbass." I mean, a grown fucking man literally saying meow, woof, and bark in the middle of the fucking woods. And it was in the goddamn bright evening, and it still freaked me the fuck out. I gazed around. The noise was coming from the direction northwards, away from the property line. "Hello?" Woof. Shit went from cringing to just goddamn confused. "You're on private property." He was off the property, technically. But like I was gonna tell the creepy motherfucker that. "Show yourself, now." A long pause. Meow. I let out a sigh. "Stop fucking around. Show yourself, now." What happened next made me immediately reach for the rifle on the back of my ATV. Directly to the right of my ATV, pointing at the point I knew was directly north of the house, poked a head. And I don't mean like a head. A hairy fucker or some pedo or some shit. Who else fucks around in the woods like this? Regardless, what poked out was a completely blank head. Ever have those toys as kids? You fill the mold of that guy and pop him out? Imagine that, but on a much better, more defined scale. A male head, stripped of hair, eyebrows, eyelashes, fucking lips. The second it stuck out, it looked at me with what were wide eyes and dilated pupils, and without even moving his barely open mouth, went, Coo. It caused me to nearly trip and fall on my ass from the shock. I scrambled to my feet and aimed the rifle over the ATV, using the small vehicle against cover from whatever the fuck this was. Come out, now! Neigh. In retrospect, I now can guess he was making a horse's neigh, but I thought he was saying neigh in defiance, so I stood up and screamed, "Come the fuck out, or I will fire!" Yes, I was that trigger-happy security contractor that those thrill-seeking teens ran into when they pushed the buttons of a rent-a-cop on duty. You can thank Afghanistan for that mentality. What I cannot thank Afghanistan for was preparing me for what the man did next. The guy crab-walked. More so shuffled outwards sideways. You know in 2D cartoons how they draw the crabs? He was like that. Legs apart wide, hands up like fucking claws, and that god-awful face staring at me. He was also fucking naked. All I could let out was a, "What the fuck?" Not gonna lie, I was in disbelief. Oink. He then turned 90 degrees and fucking shuffled at goddamn 50 miles per hour away. After a few meters, he disappeared into the thick brush. What the fuck? I've heard him, but never seen him since. And something told me Theodore brushing it off didn't put my mind at ease either. I started to get over seeing the random lights, the naked man, and the growing claw marks on the wall. Got used to it, I guess. Then, I met Tim a few nights ago. So one night, I was sitting in the security room. Essentially, the outside-facing wall is a, wall of monitors. There's nothing much in the room. Table with a computer, mouse and keyboard attached to the screens. The crate where I stuffed the fur, along with any other things the cryptid Amazon users would buy up for $300 minimum, and a chair. Gets pretty boring actually. Log walls aren't furnished with a layer of plywood and plaster like the rest of the place, which gives off that piney smell and makes it strangely quiet. What broke the silence a few days ago was when I took a break from scanning empty monitors to listen and browse on my phone. Hey! The voice echoed through the sound of the speakers, caused a jump a bit too. Dead of night, and went right from dead silence. I quickly scanned the monitors, trying to find the source. Hey! Nothing at the backside, nothing in the main yard. Hey! The voice sounded like it was halfway to cracking. Then I decided to do what I should have done instead of my frantic screen searching. I checked the sound receivers and saw it was coming from the voice receiver at the front gate. Hey! My eyes darted to the camera overlooking the front gate to see some kind of white figure with a metal pole. Wasn't too good of a look, so I switched to the front gate camera. What I saw left me in surprise. Not shocked. Just baffled. A science room skeleton. Yes, a science room skeleton. The metal pole was actually the wheeled rack it was hanging off of. I sat there, surprised. I expected to see a serial killer? Hell, seeing the white figure from a distance made my mind go into emergency mode from reading off of too many Native American horror stories. But this? Hey! The voice called from the skeleton. Or at least, I thought it was. It was coming from the receiver, so it could very well have been just a decoy, and someone underneath it was yelling into it. I clicked on the speaker and called back. "You're on private property." A long silence followed, broke up by, "Hey! A dead, unmoving stare from the skeleton as it happened. What the fuck? What the fuck is this? Hey! Someone was trying to draw my attention to the front gate. I sighed and grabbed my rifle, but considering it would also be a close distance, I grabbed the Beretta from the locker under the table as well. I passed John, Theodore's son, and I went for the front door. "John, head upstairs. Lock yourself in your room." He sighed, turning his attention from playing some sort of game on his Xbox. "Why?" "Some guy at the front gate. Could be a perimeter breach attempt. No other signs of life except the front gate." John paused for a moment as I unlocked the door. His question caused me to pause. Is it a skeleton? I stopped, locking eyes with the 16-year-old. A second of silence passed, as a "Hey!" escaped through the slight crack of the door. Possibly. That's just Tim. I blinked at the response, shaking my head slightly. Tim? Yeah, skeleton. Appears and just yells at the gate. That just tells me to ignore him and turn up the volume. That's highly unsafe. John simply looked confused. A silent "Why?" There's a man out there screaming at the gate, causing an obvious distraction, and your dad just lets it fly? It's not a person, it's a skeleton, and Dad says to ignore the things that come around during the night. It's at this point I realize the parlor and all the windows to ground level rooms that were too big for simple blinds were above eye level, easier to avoid seeing things at night. Well, I'm going to talk to Tim. Don't. This made me stop at the door, because, well, the kid said the single word a lot sterner than I had had any adult speak to me in the past, 8 years? Why? It's how we lost Richie. He told me. For reference, Richie was a Rottweiler they had a few years back. Went missing. Father chummed it up to him running off after a bear. Guy was at our gate, and Dad sicked him on him. I feel I knew the obvious truth, but I wasn't in the mood to hear the rest, shaking my head as I headed out. I pressed the remote control for the gate I had clipped on my belt and had it open. I took a firing position from the porch and watched as the reinforced sheets of steel and mechanics slowly wheeled open. Part of me thanks Theodore for all the lights. The woods out here are an impermeable wall of pitch black, suffocatingly so. So dark, it illuminated Tim even brighter than he was. But as soon as I saw him, one of those alarms went off in my head. You see, when the gates wheeled open, I remembered something. Tim was positioned just in front of the receiver, although a few meters from it. Point is, he was off to the right of the driveway. So when the gates opened up down the middle, the pitch black walls of the trees showing themselves. There it was, dead center in the middle of the gravel path. Hey! Tim was cut off mid-sentence when it opened wide enough for both of us to get a good look at each other. If it was a burglary distraction, it would have been long enough, and an alarm would have been tripped if a sneak entry was tried. All I saw was me aiming at what was a fucking science class skeleton in the middle of the goddamn woods. Fuck me. I cut the pie of the gates, meaning I first vaulted over the porch edge and checked slowly on the right side to see if anyone was hiding. Nothing. I checked on the left side, keeping far enough to where they'd have a few meters run at me. Nothing. I stopped, my rifle barrel lowered, but still shouldered. Now here's the thing, the floodlights are so bright, if anyone tried to hide, you'd be able to see them. Problem was, there was no one. Sitting there, staring off to the left side, when Tim started up again. Hey! I sighed. What in the ever-loving fuck is going on? Hey! I walked towards the gate, peeked around the corner of the wall, and stared out at him. Tim. At this point, I did scans to the left and right side. No one. Nothing. Fucking zip. Just me and a goddamn skeleton. The quickly cooling night air allowed me to see my breath. I quickly gazed around, trying to see where the moon was. Near midnight. Narc? I spun around and backed up a few paces. Did the skeleton just call me a narc? I lowered my barrel when I realized I was aiming at a fucking skeleton. But in retrospect, I shouldn't be so careful. I gazed at the thing for a few moments. Gazing at it, I decided to say fuck it and went up to him. It was indeed a skeleton, and a bare one at that. No wires, no cameras, no voice speakers, nothing. I thought it might be built into the stand, but the pipe seemed to be hollow, and it didn't sound like it was coming from a metal pipe. I backed up from Tim, once again asking myself confidently, what the actual fuck? Strangely, I expected this to be the point where something jumped out, scared me and forced a hasty retreat into the compound. Sorry, estate's walls. But nothing. Not a shadow out in the dark wall. Not a pale white crab-walking, back-flipping deformed man. Not a goddamn thing. Hey Narc, nice scar. I turned my head back to Tim and then backed up a few more steps. I was staring leftwards before he said that. On the right side of my face is a scar, a long gash, although not too noticeable if you aren't close. You'd have to be close if you didn't know it was there. And Tim was around the distance you'd need to be. There were no cameras on it. How could anyone see? No speakers, so no way someone could be speaking through it. And yet, it just gave me a compliment about a facial mutilation. What the fuck did you just say? I asked. Sounded unintentionally offended. It was really more out of stunned confusion. The skeleton did not answer. Whatever was going on, whoever was doing this, it was fucking with me. So I parted ways with Tim with a nice crack to the skeleton's jaw, courtesy of my rifle stock, and walked back in, hitting the button as the gates slowly closed. Between the sound of the gates closing and the engines forcing them to slide shut, I heard one parting message from Tim. Asshole. Went back out the next day. Tim was gone. Still don't believe a skeleton talked to me yesterday. Seems so fucking stupid in retrospect, and yet matched the atmosphere in a strange way. Now, it's been a few weeks. That's some of the shit I've encountered. There's been a lot going on, and I've decided to do what every person encountering paranormal elements with too much excess time has. Document it online. Or well, blog it I guess. Post? Getting off track. Point is, I've got plenty of things to tell. So when I get back to this shitty laptop, you'll be the first to hear. It's Nolan, your security friend from the woods. A lot has happened. It's the reason I was so busy for what seemed to be the entire damned week. And even today, we're sorting out some things. So that reason, gonna try and get through this, but it will be in 2 parts. You might ask what happened, or why we're busy, but just trust me when I say by tomorrow should be cleared up, and you'll get the full picture of this. So, sit tight. Some notes though. Again, thank you for the feedback. It's been helpful and it's given me some insight over the past week. Before I get to hashing out the events, let me take some time real quick to answer back. In regards to using fire, torches, incendiary, dragon's breath rounds, after recent events, which you'll find out, it's definitely an option I'll explore. Thank you. Some were curious about the crab-walking slender animal man. While, as I've said, I haven't seen him since then, which has been a week or so ago, I decided to look up the account that was posted by a search and rescue officer. Stunning really. There's not a national park around here for tens of miles, probably more. They seem similar to me, albeit the figure I saw had somewhat of a face, and said one did not when described. We'll keep this noted. Thank you. Due to the nature of the estate and the contract I signed, I cannot give out the location of the compound and the surrounding area. But for the sake of clarity, I don't think some vague description of where this is at is all that bad. The heavy woodland area, the compound, and the town are based in the general southeast quarter of Missouri. That's all I can tell. Now that that's clear, let's recall unarguably the most eventful near week of my life. So, you might remember, Tim. Well, so did I. Theodore gave me another one of those brushed off excuses. Halloween decoration, insomnia. He knows more than he's letting on. I mean, he totally fucking does, right? Then, why lie? You want me to protect your house. Why not tell me what's really out there? Well, not just out there. You see, the morning I woke up, it was around 6. Due to how my body's wired and my schedule, I sleep a healthy 5 hours in the security room so I can be awoken in case of an alarm. Point is, I woke up. House is dead fucking silent, and I'm going to get myself an energy drink. No, I don't drink coffee. Never bother to spend a week wasting batches to find the right blend. Rambling again, sorry. Point is, the house is dead quiet. Not unreasonable, nor unexpected. What was unexpected was the fucking cold. You see, the house has one of those old chimney heater systems, a water boiler. But most of the shit Theodore has installed is mostly state-of-the-art electronic shit. Pretty power costly too, but it allows the place to keep at room temp 24/7. Which is why I woke up and thought it was fucking odd that it was 51 goddamn degrees. Outage? Shouldn't be. All of the electronics are still working fine. Even checked the security systems to see no dippage happened. Malfunction? Could be. But if the electric goes, apparently the old heater and boiler are set up to take over. Point is, when I hit it downstairs, it still waking up even 20 minutes after. I was a little more than cautious when I brought my Beretta with me. Some info about the basement real quick. The main portion is a rectangle room with the staircase splitting it down the middle. To the left, when you come down, storage. To the right, the heaters, boilers, and other machinery. I turned on the lights, came down, and noticed something. It was all off. Everything. Boiler pilot light, furnace was long cold, and the electric generator connected to the heater was dead still. Not a breeze, not a drop of water. Creeped me the fuck out. But wasn't like it was gonna fix itself. But the second I knelt down and started trying to spark the boiler back on, I felt off. The entire basement went from feeling secure to feeling like I was in enemy territory. I didn't just feel watched. I felt hated. I felt fucking despised. So much so, I even had to look up and back to see if there was some naked fucker crap walking down here. Nothing. Boiler sparked on, and I pulled the handle as it started up. One down. And then I sighed. Fucking furnace's wood was. That's odd. I remember coming down here and checking last night. Put in some fresh locks just in case. They weren't gone. They were charred and completely stamped out. Even if they needed to start on in the 5 or so hours of a possible outage, they shouldn't be this dead and cold. That's when I saw something that made me draw my pistol and back against the concrete wall. It happened when my head gazed slightly to the right. In my peripheral, I saw a pair of legs. When I was back to the wall, ready to fight off whatever the fuck, nothing. I know what you're gonna say. It's a ghost, dickhead. Get the fuck out. Keep in mind, I was fucking tired, and I remember it being as grey as the concrete and walls around. So I have myself the benefit of the doubt and tossed in some locks. Besides, I keep drawing my pistol like Rambo. Only a matter of time I accidentally shoot Theodore or John. Finally, the goddamn electric generator. It's not like one of the shitty gas-operated ones you get at Kmart for like $12.50. It was at least 5x8. Damn thing had a touchpad, a direct fucking cable underground to the grid, and most importantly, a security lock. Code only I and Theodore knew, so it couldn't have been John. It couldn't be some fucker who broke in, let alone without tripping any alarms, to just turn off the damned heat and clean water. Felt like I was still being watched. I kept gazing around. No one was there, not just paranoia in the woods. Despite some entertaining tenants inhabiting them, I knew when I was alone and when I was being watched. Right now, felt like a bear wanted to tear out my ass. Regardless, I needed to figure out what happened with the generator. Luckily, the security room has more than just camera angles. The generator being hooked up to the grid and run on the network of the house means, sort of like your iPhone, every time the touchpad is accessed to have the code put in, it leaves a file. For example, app, lock screen, info, swipe, time, down to the fucking second. I opened the access log for the generator. Time was listed as 3:17 AM, around an hour and 40 after I got some shut-eye. Someone accessed the pad and typed in the correct code on the third try. Only Theodore and I knew the code. I knew it wasn't me. I was fast asleep in the locked security room. Theodore, I don't think, had time to turn off the water and heat utilities of his building for a quick laugh. so whatever accessed the pad did so after multiple tries. Theodore was in his office, looking as stupidly chipper for being awake in the early hours that got himself abandoned. "Theodore? Good morning, Dwight. Tim visit you in your dreams?" he jested. "God, no, thankfully. Theodore, the heating went off last night, and the boiler, and the furnace." "All of it? Was it an outage?" "No, everything shows not a damn second went by where the main electric was shut down. Just the side generators downstairs controlling, well, clean water and heat." He pondered for a moment. Should be noted, not a moment goes by where Theodore never looks, well, unpositive. Always got the same sort of smirk Steve Jobs had while ordering Malaysian children to make his iPhones. Maybe it was just a malfunction? Couldn't be. Someone or something accessed the touchpad and deactivated it. Took it a few tries too. It wasn't John. He's a good kid. Also, he doesn't know the passcode, and I'm sure he doesn't want to be sleeping in the ice-cold air of the forest. "Well," he paused before snapping his fingers. "Try the camera on the generator." I looked confused. "Your generator has a camera?" "It's like an iPhone. Told you guys. Every time someone accesses it, it snaps a HD photo. Does this guy just lace everything with cameras? Am I flushing the toilet and having the handle take selfies of my ass every other hour? Still, thankfully convenient. Was gonna have a look at it later. But for now, I still had shit to do. First thing, check the perimeter. Wall seemed to be intact, thankfully confirming my suspicions we weren't besieged by Tim and his skeletal army last night. The gate showed it was closed ever since I had it stay shut. And finally, the barbed wire. But, well, that's where it got odd. A portion of the barbed wire was noticeably missing. Several feet of barbed wire was gone. Missing. Moreover, when I went out, rifle in hand to check, 2 of the floodlights were out as well. This is bad. An alarm should have been tripped when those 2 went off. And if something got that close and ripped off the fucking wire. I rushed back to the security room with a reasonable amount of paranoia. Fucking skeleton, goddammit. I knew it was a fucking distraction. I knew it. Slipped right into my chair and checked the footage. Initially, I thought nothing wrong. Like I said, no motion detectors or alarms went off. Hell, guess I was wrong about Tim. The left side cameras showed nothing wrong during my whole interrogation of the science room prop. But then, at 3:25 AM, one of the floodlights flickered and went off, then the adjacent one to its left, then its right. A 5 feet wide segment of the wall. Done. Gone. Just like that, all the bullshit tech went out the window apparently. And I say that because the motion detectors were still on, and they didn't pick up what happened next. From the light still beaming from within the house, you could barely see through the gap in the light. Remember when I said the darkness was, well, drowning, suffocating? Wasn't kidding. No city light, no suburban light. Went from a dimming spot as the light went off to a pitch black strip. Could barely even see the top of the wall above the broken floodlights. And when I did, for context, when a body becomes bloated in water, its skin looks incredibly soaked. Its flesh looks mushy. That's the kind of flesh I saw. A sickly gray or silver hand, fingernails not black. I recognized the wounds. Vessels broken and underside of the nails bloody. The thing reached over and plucked the barbed wire off. Literally, shit plucked off. And before I knew it, the other end of the God knows how long segment of barbed wire simply snapped off. Not a goddamn thing after that. Just blank footage showing the dark area slowly light up as the sun rose. What the fuck? Not only did this shit just bypass all the alarms, it could have just waltzed in here. This happened when I was out cold, asleep. This was bad. Criminally fucking bad. Absolutely catastrophically fucked. We need to get the fuck out of here. A malfunction happened. Sometimes due to all the power, some of the bulbs aren't prepared and zap out. Just get some of the extra strength ones and replace the a fucking hand reached out. Some ghoulish motherfucker just waltzed right up to your billion-dollar compound and ripped off barbed wire used on military compounds like it was fucking nothing. You're overreacting, Dwight. You're underreacting. It wasn't fear that drove me. I knew we were safe. For now. Whatever it was, like to keep to nightfall. But we needed to get the fuck out of this place. Dwight. The middle-aged man took off his glasses, brushing back his black but slowly graying hair as he looked at me. What do I pay you for? Oh, this fucker. Security, I gruffed. Well, obviously, this is a security situation. I paid you a pretty handsome upfront sum to come out here and protect this place. You've done your job well so far, but it seems to me like this little malfunction is a security situation. Take care of it. I contemplated calling a cab and flying back to Chicago, right then and there. Right then. Right fucking there. However, whatever was out there was just prodding defenses, testing morale, trying to see just what the fuck we were made of. What I was made of. A wiser man should have went back to civilization, bought a room at the motel, and called settling out in the woods to be a fucking mistake. While I might not be a wiser man, I'm sure as shit a bold one. Brighter bulbs were gonna be the trick? Fine. Spend the better part of a few hours unscrewing, replacing, and rescrewing the floodlights, all 48 of them. Let's just say I spent the day rewiring the walls and assessing the integrity of the motion trackers. And when night came, I sat in the security room, eyes glued to the monitor. Waiting. Just fucking waiting for something to happen. 9 goddamn hours of darkness. 6 goddamn magazines loaded with hollow point rounds for my rifle. Not a single fucking move from the outside for 2 whole nights. Whatever it was, it did its job. Fucked with my head the first time. I made a mental note. The second time, it wouldn't be so prudent. Regardless, I couldn't sit in the compound forever. Still had a job to do. A storm was going to be rolling in the next few days. A small one, less regionally and more statewide. But it was still gonna be a downpour. That meant ensuring no one was fucking about on the trail or property space. I've already seen that this fucking place in the daytime was goddamn weird. Imagine being stuck in a monsoon with the fuckers. I was less being a dick to campers and more doing people a favor. Felt good to be back on the ATV though. Wind in my face, sun in the sky. Whether it was the courage of knowing I had a healthy bit of firepower on my back, or just knowing whatever this shit was, it wasn't brave enough to fuck with anyone in the daytime. Felt good to zip down the trail. To be fair, you patrol enough, you tend to learn some landmarks. Even in the forest. Helps to not get lost. Giant oak, short cliff, set of trees dominoing into each other, large rock pointing upwards, fox den, Native American, eagles. Wait. Slammed on my fucking brakes just as my ATV came over a small ramp. It flew for a second before slamming on the ground and braking hard. I looked back and gazed at the spot where I passed him. Tan guy, sort of a bracelet of what I'm gonna guess were talons. War paint across the eyes, head shaved except for a mohawk, and eagle's feathers. I remember him clear as fucking day because my mind got a good sip of him before I realized the natives around this part were moved to Oklahoma a few hundred years ago. I looked back. Nothing. Nothing except for a smoke pillar in the short distance right behind where the guy should have been. Son of a... Took my rifle out. Worked the bolt and readied a round. Not this time. Fuck that. Crept through the grass. Right around a large rock formation was a small smoke pillar. It was to the right of the trail, and while it was not technically on property, it was also ordered by the local government down the road for all campers to get the fuck out of the woods before the rain hit. Walked around the bend, keeping in a crouched stance, and saw a campsite. Who in the actual fuck is camping out here? What in the actual fuck would be camping out here? Approached the campsite. Didn't have much. A tent, cooking pot, bag hanging to keep away from bears. Except there were no bears around these parts. approached the tent. I looked inside the flap. A sleeping bag with someone in it. "Hey," I gave in my best cop voice. The bag shifted, but no answer. "Excuse me?" Some muttering, probably from a male, and the person inside the bag adjusted. I sighed. I grabbed the top part of the sleeping bag and pulled it open. The person jolted, and I could see a man, young, tannish, hunter-looking guy with a full beard, possibly mid-30s. What? Oh, hey," he said enthusiastically at the last part. He bolted upright, or more as upright as you can be in a tent. I kept my gun shouldered, but kept the barrel low. "You're on private property, sir." Been saying that a lot now. No one seems to get the memo. Wait, you're not... People live near here? Yes. Oh, thank God. He quickly pulled up his pants. I then realized I was talking to a half-naked guy before he started to clean and pack his things at almost inhuman speeds. "Been out here for a while. You should see the place. Beautiful, scenic." He zipped up his bag, and it's then I realized he'd started to already get his tent packed up. But also dangerous. I gazed around. "Yeah, I'm aware." It's then the man shoved his tent into its bag and started to tie it to the side of his main pack. "So, stranger, live near here? There a town? Civilization? Got any food?" "Yeah, just down the road, a few miles." "Thank God. Been out here for what felt like months." "Yeah, camping will do." "Wait, months?" "Well, probably just weeks. Time passes. Say, you got the date?" "Out here?" I pointed to the ground. "Yeah." Unnoticeably, strangely, not southern, more mixed Bostonian with trucker. "How?" I asked, genuinely intrigued. "Like, you know what's out." "Oh yeah. Pretty fucked, to be honest." "Say, you seen two naked guys leapfrogging over each other?" My stunned silence was more than enough of an answer for him. "Yeah, kinda weird. I know it's summer and it's warm, but really isn't the environment to be going full nudist. Look, you really need to get the fuck out of these woods." "Huh," he laughed. "You're telling me. Say, can I head back to your house?" "No, it's private property." "Come on, man. Been stuck out here with shit that makes me want to hug a bear at night for the last week or so." I rubbed my temples. "Look, just hit left back up the trail. When you reach the gravel road, you're near the main road, and turn right to get to the town." He let out an inexplicably long sigh. "Fine." It's then I realized he had his entire camp already packed up as he headed out. Before he went, I stopped him. "Wait." He turned. "How did you survive the night in a measly tent?" He scratched his head and shrugged. "Dunno. Guys out here probably have a bigger target." As he left down the trail, a pit formed in my gut. A bigger target. No time to think. Can't get freaked out. Not now at least. Not enough time, nor the place. Drove down the trail further. Sadly, Animal Man wasn't there, but something did catch my eye. I hit the brakes on my ATV, coming to a stop at the straightaway. I was going down the left side of the property line, the western side. From here, there was a slight cliff line to where you could see over some of the trees. Sadly, couldn't stop to see the sights. It wasn't the plant life that caught my eye, wasn't the endless greenery. It was the rat and yellow cap, dead center of the trail, that stopped me. Now, even this deep in the woods, which are apparently taboo to the point of no real campers, you still find trash, litter. Hell, I found a fucking Mr. Pip bottle, and they stopped selling the original years ago. But I've never once in the 4 or so weeks I've been here, seen clothing. Especially mint condition clothing. I mean, this was deep in the woods. Surely, whoever dropped it would have gotten some dirty on them. But no. I stepped off the ATV, rifle now in its sling. Couldn't take any risks anymore. I picked it up. It was small, and I checked the size, and I felt some dread wash over me. Kids. Small. The fuck was a kid doing out here? Looked for any sort of name tag next. Hey! Nearly jumped out of my own fucking skin as I drew my pistol and aimed for what was behind me. Then I fucking sighed. That fucking skeleton. Of all the people to see out here at this time, stupid bastard made me nearly jump out of my skin. But likewise, if he wanted to get a jump on me, he could have very well have just grabbed a rock. I mean, he wasn't there before, and here he was. No noise. Out of the blue. Hey Tim, I said, going back to inspect the hat. Narc? I still didn't know who was initiating this puppet. Still refused to believe it was a living fucking object. But he obviously wasn't hostile, so I decided to play along. I held up the hat by its visor. Know what this is, Tim? Silence. What, was this some don't look at me and we talk kind of bull? Inspected the hat further. Found something written on the back. Omen. Narc. I gazed up at my eggshell colored friend. What? Omen? I looked back in the hat to see what I was looking at. On the inside of the back, written in permanent marker. Danny. Showed the back to Tim. Know a Danny by chance? Once again, I was met by stone silence. Brilliant. Found an ominous omen of a child's hat with a name. And yet, the only person I can ask right now is playing peekaboo 20 questions. Fucking perfect. No signs of life. Hair. Nothing. Almost like him. My face shot up to meet Tim's. Grassman. Grassman? Forgetting how he finally directly spoke to me. What was Grassman? No leaves on the hat as I looked. And there was grass everywhere, literally. It's a forest. But none on the hat. Not a drop of filth at all. Who's Grassman? Tim once again answered with silence. Oh great. Back to tiddlywinks. Fuck this. Placed the hat in the pocket of my coat and hopped on the ATV. Thanks, Tim. I turned back to the skeleton, and despite me now thinking my sanity was slipping, I said, Sorry for cracking you on the skull. I stopped. Huh, that's funny, 'cause you're a skeleton. I looked back again. Tim was gone. Of course. The drive back was quiet, thank God. Between something always poking its creepy fucking head around a tree and sneaking up, having some peace and quiet was good. That was, until I reached the front gate. Look man, I can't let you in. Wait till Dwight gets back and I'll help you. Wait till who? Look, there's goddamn ghouls out here, man. Let me in. The same guy before, talking to John through the intercom's voice receiver. His Bostonian accent was more apparent when he yelled. Just wait. Oh, here's Dwight now. I parked the ATV center of the driveway in front of the gate. The man turned. Hey, He snapped his fingers, trying to find my name although I never told him. Dwight, that's it? Sure it is. Thought I told you to head down the road. Come on man, it's getting dark and it's fucking spooky out here. Can I stay for the night? My next look red. Are you actually kidding me? The guy's face didn't read any real danger. When you work the job I've worked as long as I have, you can read a person's face. He was just short of me, probably 5'10"-ish. Looked like a Minnesota trucker decided to play Spetsnaz, but seemed genuine. Finally, I agreed with a sigh. I'll talk to my boss. You can stay for the night, but you're to stay inside of me at all times. The guy sighed with relief. And this is when I could read the genuineness in his relief, just eliminating any doubts about him. Finally got the time to sit down and talk to him. His name's Isaac, was a truck driver, knew it, lived in the New England area, knew it, and had his truck break down in fucking Texas after a long haul. Decided to take up camping a few miles away while it was getting fixed. Turns out, he'd been bumping around 3 states worth of forest before he found me. Texas? I asked in disbelief, swiveling slightly on the security room's computer chair. Yup, he said, sitting in the corner where he'd set up his goddamn tent. Indoors. I won't judge. Gives us both privacy. I know what you're bound to say, ask, or warn me. He's a shape-shifting witch doctor that you literally found in the woods and just said, "Yeah, sure, come on in." And while the latter might be right, don't know whether it's his almost transparent demeanor or the fact he could have stabbed me the 17 times I've turned my back to him, 2 of which, while I've been writing these, buries my doubts. At least for now to discuss later. What isn't for later is what came the following day. Isaac had done some pirate radio type stuff, surprisingly showed me how to set the cameras on swivel mode, set up the radios on a covert frequency. As the head of security and the sole member of the Kazamoth Estate Security Force, I made the executive decision to let him pay off his stay with work. Things were going smoothly, until me and Isaac were sitting in the living room. Storm was hitting hard outside, so we let the security do the work and decided to bug out for the night. Turned on basic cable, and both of us were watching the end credits to the movie roll. "God, that movie sucked," Isaac said, sitting back to the point where he was laying on the entirety of the couch, when I said, "Make yourself at home." He took it literally. That's why we should stop watching C-list movies on Netflix. Not a goddamn director on there that knows how to make a... Just then, a large flurry of rain hit the windows above the living room walls in between the already hard rainfall. Could pull out a camera now. We'd make the best found footage short on the damn app. I laughed. Funny because, well, it was true. You might be asking, why are you telling us this? It's because things went from 0 to 60,000 as our laughter was cut off when John came walking, more running into the living room. "Dwight, someone's calling for help." I bolted upright, as did Isaac. "What?" "A kid on the radio." For reference, what he's talking about is one of the motion trackers. While primarily they're around the wall, we place them periodically throughout the trail. How it works is, when one of them senses someone, something in the area, it records the footsteps in a sort of circle and records the sound for reference. Through the rainfall, we could hear the sounds of a child crying, screaming help to, well, his father? No one in particular. It was at tracker number 6, the most northern tracker near the northern arch of the trail. "You're not actually going up there?" Isaac asked futilely as I zipped up the waterproof overcoat. "If that kid's out there, oh come the fuck on." I zipped up the coat. 2 back trench coat-like flaps helped to shield my pant legs and back pockets. He met me face to face. "You've seen what's out there, but I've seen a whole lot more. The things out there, especially in this part, will lure you, imitate whatever. I've heard that kid's voice out there 6 times a fucking week, right outside my tent flap. You're walking into a trap." I found the damn kid's hat today. Looked them dead in the eye before chambering around in the Winchester, clipping on the belt I had with load magazines. You may have heard something else, but my gut tells me there's a good chance he's out there. What if it's not the damn kid? What if it is? You gonna be the one to tell his mother? What do you mean? What's out there? We both noticed John by the doorway. Kid was smart, good head on his shoulders, but God, if I hadn't seen that look on his face. Pure fucking confusion. Same look I had while patrolling night 1. Isaac sighed. "Are you telling me this kid's lived in the haunted woods for God knows how long, and he doesn't know what's outside?" "Isaac?" The trucker quieted down before clearing his throat. "We'll tell you later, kid." I looked John dead in the eye. "Your dad will tell you." "Isaac, on the radio." I grabbed the small radio clipped to my utility vest. "Testing, testing." A voice came through the headset. "Testing, testing." The kid's continued cries for help sent a shiver down my spine. Looking out onto the rainy, pitch-black night, sitting on that ATV, rifle in sling, the only light being from the damned glorified moped I was on, that made a pit in my stomach grow. But then it sank. Maybe it was knowing there was a kid out here. Maybe it was, as I say, the 308 strapped to my back. Maybe it was knowing I was half a mile driving down a dirty path, the ATV half battling the dirt and mud for supremacy. My mind needed to be a shield right now. It needed to be forged out of solid iron. The giggling in the forest and the flashing shadows didn't help.
"Dwight,
Dwight, come in. Isaac's voice bellowed from the radio. Dangerously, I pried my left hand from the handlebars, having been gripping it. I'm here, Isaac. Nearing the bend now.
Dwight, the kid. Gun, quiet.
I still don't know, even after inspecting it, if it was water, mud, or something else that made the radio go dead. But before I knew it, my right hand was right back on the handlebar as the front tires came to a halt, nearly knocking me off the front. The fuck? I asked. ATV was still on. I tried to reverse. The back tires tried. The front tires did, but stopped. They were snagged on something. I looked, and dread fully overtook me. A line of barbed wire stretched across the muddy path, and both front tires were completely snagged. And after trying to reverse, now tangled in it. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. 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 I tried to reverse, to no avail. I gazed at the barbed wire, trying to see how long it was. Where was the end? The end led off the road, and I saw it was tied against two opposing trees. Fuck! I was goddamn set up. I should have listened to Isaac. I should have listened to the feeling in my gut, underneath all that sense of bravery and child rescue shit. I unstrapped the rifle and sat half-mount on the ATV and listened. And through the rain, God, it still sends a shiver up my spine. The giggling, the voices. You know what they say, inhuman. You don't know until you know, until you've heard. A low pitch, too low to be human, whispering, laughing. I wipe rain out of my eyes, trying to get a good look, and I see yellow ahead, yellow and red. It's the kid, is it? It looks like him. The back of a coach, the red pant leg, just barely out of the range of my ATV's lights. Danny! I yelled, top of my lungs, trying to get the kid's attention. And then, meters above the child's height should be, I see a pair of eyes, in a color I can't even describe. Looking back, the kid, no, the decoy disappeared. And I was left with the voices growing and the eyes gazing. Motherfucker! I yelled at it and fired off a shot between the eyes. The HP round went soaring through the air, as dark as oil. You could see the hot round go soaring, and finally hit it as it disappeared into the pitch black between its eyes. It moved, like something that just got punted with a rock. But it didn't move, more so shifted back after a light shove. It continued to look. I worked the bolt, the casing falling out and hissing in the cold rain, and fired again. The shot went flying. But again, whatever it was, maybe its flesh was too thick. Maybe I didn't have time to think, because the storm finally decided to crack lightning near us. God, I wish it hadn't. Because I got a good look at what I was shooting at. Something no man, woman, child, fucking anyone was meant to see. Turns out, I was correct about my surveillance when I said the flesh looked bloated. The nails dark from broken vessels, the black rings, the milky white eyes with dilated pupils. I don't remember much else from the one I shot at. I was too fixated on the dozens behind it. I've been deployed. I've wore high-tech body armor and carried an M4. I know this setup. The kind meant to stop a convoy. It's meant for a target. It's a fucking ambush. I don't care if you call me a wuss security guard. I don't care if you think I'm a coward. I grabbed the ATV keys and I fucking ran. I booked it, unholstered my pistol, and I made Usain fucking Bolt look out of shape. The sounds. Fuck. The sounds. I could tell they were around. Thankfully, I knew the path. I knew where I was going. But they were following me, toying the snapping branches to my right, the low pitch, deep giggles that sounded like they were right next to my face. I had to run. I was in free fall, out in the open, exposed. Fuck, why didn't I listen to? Then, the figure dead in front of me, it jumped out, trying to surprise me. Just 5 meters ahead. No time for an accurate rifle shot. No time to even unsling it. Primal instinct took over. Flight couldn't get through, so fight did. And I laid what I counted now, 9 rounds into the thing. It was smaller than the ones back there. Much smaller. After it jolted from the majority of a 9mm cartridge, I threw my shoulder into it and pushed past it. The way the skin looked made you underestimate the density. My shoulder ached, felt like I just tried to ram a fucking tree. But whether it was my shove or all the rounds, it stumbled off the path, and I kept running, half wobbling as I hadn't caught my footing. I tried to round the bend, but failed. I fucking failed. Tripped and fallen over a goddamn branch that had fallen from the rain. I tried to brace, grab my rifle, but just fell on top of it. A round shot out and hit a tree to my left, causing bark to explode off its surface. My brain was yelling at me. Funny what adrenaline and the human flight mode can do when working together. I blinked. Mud blinded me. My muscles and lungs started to ache as I stopped. I needed to get moving, but the shit in my vision stung. I blinked. Light was coming from somewhere, but I didn't know where. I tried to blink my right eye free, and I saw him. The man from before. The Native American. Looked just like before, looking at me blankly between 2 trees. I grunted. I didn't hear the things as loudly as before, but I had to get going. Rain aided me as I finally cleaned my eyes somewhat and looked at him again. He was gone, but I saw through where he stood and saw the compound walls, the gate in the distance. I made a deadbolt, a run for your fucking life. I clicked the remote on my belt, but it refused to work. The gate refused to open. I tried the vest radio and screamed, "Open it! Isaac! Open the fucking gate!" I don't know if I knew it was more than likely broken. I didn't fucking care. I was nearing it. 50 meters. 35 meters. I could still hear something chasing me. Surprised I even kept a hold to my guns as I ran. Then, the gate started to open. Isaac stood there and fired something I found out to be a flare gun. The gate stopped after it opened 3 feet, and I dove in, face eating a dirt gravel mixture. I once again picked myself up as I heard Isaac say something along the lines of, "Holy shit, what is that?" Barely had time to listen. I pointed from the box mounted to the inside of the wall. The electric." I tried to talk, half spitting out dirt. "What? Stop speaking pig Latin." "Hit the fucking electric." Isaac caught on. He pulled open the box and pulled the switch. Where the wall segments met, there were pikes and bars connecting the tops of them, allowing us to wrap the barbed wire around. They sprang to life as electricity surged and zapped out. We didn't care to see if it amounted to anything. Hauled my ass inside with the redneck and collapsed against the side counter as my lungs felt like they were melting. "Dwight?" John came down the stairs. "What happened?" All the running must have torn up my throat as I spat some blood into the kitchen sink, turning on the faucet and washing it down. I shook my head. Brain was pounding. Legs hurt. Isaac set the smoking flare gun on the counter as he went to the fridge and cracked open an energy drink. "He just saw some ghouls, Johnny." I tried to shake away the wear and tear my body had. "John," wiping my face, walking out of the kitchen and toward the stairs of the house leading up and around the living room. "Go to your room." For once, he listened and nodded. "Dad is gonna tell me about what's outside?" "No." I shook my head. "He's gonna tell all of us." Isaac had to stop me from almost literally kicking open Theodore's door. My arms were too tired, and primal instinct again almost took over. I came into Theodore's office, muddy, wet, and it showed as he was more concerned with me stepping onto the carpet in front of his desk. "Jesus, Dwight, care about a man's things for—" "And who's that?" he asked, pointing to Isaac. I realized I forgot to tell him about our new friend. Isaac chimed up. "Isaac, sir. Isaac, who let you in?" "Dwight?" Well, I mean, he was. We were. But you know, rain, storm, a lost child. You never come out of this office apparently. Isaac scratched the back of his head as he tried to come to my defense. Jesus, Nolan, I thought I paid you too. I slammed the hand down on the paperwork in front of him, leaning over the desk at him. Listen here. Dwight, those were for... Shut up. I think I half spit the forest floor into his face. He got the message and quieted down. I just literally ran my ass off through a forest trying to save a missing kid. Turns out, the kid wasn't there at all. Just some whatever the fuck things you never told me about, and still refused to. Isaac sniffed the air and looked at me. Jesus, did you piss yourself? The look I gave back must have changed his mind. Shit, yeah, sorry. I cannot protect you, your son, your land, or this motherfucking house when all I'm given to go off of is a deer stunning rifle, a pistol, and a whole lot of excuse bullshit. Dwight, I really don't. Oh yes, you do. You didn't spend millions building a house here and not know about what lurks right under your nose. Come clean, or we're gonna take a walk in the park with whatever's out there, and you can ask where the fuck Danny went. Danny? He didn't seem surprised entirely. More so caught off guard. Someone who seems to have gone missing in your woods. A missing kid? Yep. Isaac shook his head. Look, Dwight, I think this guy's probably hiding some sketchy shit in his closet. I bet you $5 Danny's underneath the house. Alright. Just... Theodore took his glasses off, rubbing his temples. Now, sadly, I've got no more time. Writing all of this down, the entire shit show it was, took a lot of time. When I get back, I'll fill you in on what us three talked about. But trust me, it's the reason after cleanup from the storm we got funded several $1,000s to up security, and why we're driving into town tomorrow. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. I will be back as soon as I can, hopefully sooner than last time, and tell you what we found and learned. Entry 3. Hey, it's me again. Nolan, Dwight Nolan, your resident security guard stuck in the southeastern forest hell, and someone who's just too painfully stupid to not buy a connecting flight out of here. I really wish I could. Saves me a lot of effort too. So many of you might be wondering just what me, Theodore, and Isaac hashed out in the office on that rainy night not so long ago. Does he know what's going on? Does he have the answers? Will this be solved so we can leave? Well, yes and no. For the elephant in the room, well, let me just transcribe it for you. I know something's out there, but I don't know exactly what. When I picked this plot of land for its seclusion and low price, I thought nothing of it, even with local rumors. It was a perfect place to sit down, relax. He rubbed his temples before reaching into his drawer and pulling out a small glass cleaner, which he used to defog his lenses. I should have known something was amiss. 17 workers don't just go missing from on-site accidents. Screwed up? Yes. Naive? Yes. Yet another dead end with no hard conclusions? Fucking yes. When I looked back at Isaac, part of me wanted to pack my shit and get the hell out of Dodge. But whatever the fuck's out there, Theodore obviously doesn't know, and his take and experience was bad enough to try and do what the locals did and simply sweep it under the rug. But not for me. No, I wasn't just gonna go running back to Chicago knowing this shit's down here. People are getting kidnapped, killed, or worse. I had to get to the bottom of this. So I asked Theodore for a bit of company help. That help came in the form of $17,000. It also came with Theodore getting an unexpected company call that forced him to have to fly out to Manhattan for the next week or so and leave his son. Genuinely bad-timed call, or a scumbag move. I'll let you decide. Regardless of Theodore's antics, we needed to upgrade our defense capabilities. Or that's at least what Isaac and I came up with to put on the waiver. We were loading up in the SUV Theodore left behind and driving into town. We brought John with us because, like fuck, we're gonna leave some high schooler behind in that house alone. Then the gates opened. When Isaac and I cleared out all the shrub from the storm the day prior, it wasn't that bad. Now, nothing was on the trail, but all of the surrounding trees by the front gate were gutted, slashed, carved, torn. If they wanted to get under our skin, guess it worked, because I heard Isaac lock the doors and windows as we pulled out. "So, what's your opinion on all of this?" Isaac asked as we drove through the forest towards the main road. I shrugged. What's there to fucking say? Think we all got our grievances out. Well, I guess, but... He leaned back in his seat. The endless forest walls lining the sides of the road were almost hypnotic. Why haven't the cops gone after what's in those woods? Like, seriously? Police are civil servants. Out here, they're paid in peanuts, given low stocks of equipment, and their uniform consists of a polo. I slowed the car as we started down a slope, gazing at him. Would you want to be the small-town cop to go marching into the woods with nothing but a flashlight and hope? Still, man, you can't say it isn't weird. You can ask them when we meet them. Isaac gave me a harsh look after my comment, and I pulled Danny's hat out of my pocket. The SUV slowed to a stop at the main road. Could have fooled me for thinking this wasn't an interstate line. An almost perfect T-intersection with plenty of trees smothering all sides of the road as we stopped. It was quiet, dead quiet. I turned the car right, and we were driving westward to the town down the road. In fact, we were about 10 minutes into the drive before I wondered if we were going the right way. Where the fuck is this place? I asked no one in particular in the car. If we got lost in the woods, shoot me, Isaac quipped. It's just up ahead. Look, John said from the back. Both of us turned, and well, it seemingly just appeared at the next turn we took. It was weird because, before, we were driving down a hill. Didn't see it before. Maybe it was just the trees. Forest is damn weird. Alright, John, I said, looking to the back seat. Where's this friend's house of yours? Now you might be angered by the idea of Theodore just dropping his kid during the middle of some land dispute strife with the people in the woods. So were we. So when we had to go to town, dropping John off somewhere, disconnected while we were busy on our little corporate shopping trip, seemed ideal. The drive there? Well, the aura in this place doesn't sit any better with me than the woods. The town looks like if you took what you'd imagine a southern logging town and place it just down at the peak of a mountain. Salt mill, logging yard in the middle of the town square area, surrounded by a metal fence, a bar, a gun store. Handy, we needed one of those. And well, almost no people. I'm not joking, there was an atmosphere of some sort of disconnectedness. As we made our way through what should be a busy part of the town, but instead, nothing. Some pedestrians that seemed all too busy to get to where they were going. A car every now and then. The suburb-style area, basically. Take that small neighborhood from every Halloween movie. Mid-medium class houses, brick and pine wood. Absolutely abandoned. Place is fucking creepy, Isaac said, head peering out the window at the houses. He turned back to John. Kid, you sure this is where your friend lives? John was too enthralled in whatever handheld device he had. Honestly looked like an iPad, and let out a simple, "Mm-hmm." You sure she's not possessed, right? Isaac asked again. John half chuckled. Not really reassuring.
You have reached your destination.
The robotic voice on the GPS said as we pulled up to a house. The pinewood planks painted blue with a staircase leading up to the door on the right side of the house's face and large windows on the left side. We pulled off to the side. There's the place? I asked. Yep, thanks guys. See you later, John said, grabbing his bag and hopping out of the car. I could see the look on Isaac's face as he looked around. The street was dead. We were on the edge of town, but cars were everywhere. Why did no one come outside? Why would anyone come outside is a better question. I watched John walk up the stairs and ring the doorbell. "Hey, get a load of that guy," Isaac said, gazing over at a house across the street. On an old, weathered-looking porch stood a man, average height, built. But that's not what stood out. He stood, awkwardly, like an unnatural posture, shoulders held too high, legs apart. Like I said, awkwardly. He just didn't look right. Even more, he was holding a water canister, watering a plant. That'd be fine, if he wasn't flooding the plant so much. It was visibly overflowing. He seemed too fixated on something. John. One of the alarms in my head immediately set off. Out of my peripheral vision, I saw John's friends. What I guessed was a father. Honestly, due to that beard, he could have been Bigfoot. Opened the door. Seeing how he was like 6'5" and probably ate cows for breakfast, I once again felt the kid would be safe. I waved. Isaac spit some chewing tobacco. Actually, I don't want to know, onto the floor and gave a nod. He reasonably felt weirded out and headed back inside. I put the car in reverse to back out, and I saw the man staring at us, like dead staring at us. Eyes looking dead, posture just as awkward. But he was staring at us, too distracted. He wasn't even aware his canister was pouring and drenching his dad loafers in water. And then he awkwardly strode into the house, like the rotator cuffs on his hips were broken and he half shuffled inside. A moment of silence passed, only broken by the hum of the engine. "Nice people here," Isaac said. Yeah, indeed. Now, contrary to what might be popular opinion, we're only slightly batshit for continuing to remain on post at the Casamoth estate. Or at least, I am. Isaac's just crazy, not even hired. Actually, I think he's just been using it as an excuse to eat the house's food. Anyway, we're slightly batshit, but not stupid. Theodore gave us a considerable amount of funds to increase security, and we intended to do just that. We pulled back up to the gun store we passed on our way in. It looked old, converted, like someone bought a dentist shop and renovated it to be a cellar of handheld self-reassurance. Gareth's arms written above the door. When we stopped the car and stepped out, the air felt weird. Sure, it's slightly muggy from the rainstorm. Sky is gray, but it felt weird, like something was concealed. The town was hiding something just underneath the layer of atmosphere. I guess this is what physical mystery feels like. The gun shop didn't look half as jury-rigged on the inside. Oh, no. Several firearms lined the walls, Kevlar vests, glasses, crates in each corner of what I can guess was surplus munitions, and a lone cashier, a guy, possibly mid-40s, wearing blue khakis, a utility vest, and a set of glasses with a small mohawk on his head. He gazed up at us, and his look of slight confusion was understandable. A man dressed in camo hunting gear and Coors Light memorabilia, flanked by a poor man's rent-a-cop in a leather jacket and jeans. Isaac took the lead without hesitation. "Hello, friend. How can Markle help you today?" The thick German accent made him sound half understandable and half a stereotypical movie villain. "Hey, brother. Marble?" Isaac stepped up to the counter. "Markle. Alright, Marcus. We're here on a corporate mission to buy some exportable democracy. See, we've got a pest problem we need taken care of." "Ah." Markle slapped his hands and rubbed them together. "We've got plenty to defeat pests." Markle reached over and took a small revolver from the wall, placing it on the counter. A 5-shot .32, perfect for any sort of rat infestation. Isaac scratched the back of his head. "Need something a little bigger." "Bigger?" Markle raised an eyebrow. "Ah, maybe something with more finesse. 22? Nah, bigger." "The 38? Bigger." 308? Already tried that." "What kind of rats do you have?" I sighed. "Isaac, just tell him the truth." "Truth? Markle raised an eyebrow, now confused. Isaac placed both hands on the counter. Well, you see, we've actually got a badger infestation. Markle's confusion grew. I shook my head, having enough of this. We've got some forest problems. Markle looked at me. Forest? Problems? You know, I crossed my arms. Things that go bump in the night. You live in this town. Sir, I assure you, I have no idea what you mean. I slid my hand down my face. Monsters. Fucking monsters. The kind of monsters that ate 308 rounds and kept chasing me with wide eyes and devilish grins. A tense silence passed as Markle stared at me. Sir, are you feeling alright? He hasn't slept in a while. You see, Isaac tried to turn the conversation back around. This time, Markle had enough. Look, you two, I'm not here to play games. You need proper registration, money, and authority to buy the types of arms you seek. Who do you even work for? Kazamoth Estate Security. As I said that, all the color from his face drained. Kazamoth? What? Isaac looked around, confused. That means something in German? Like your mother's a hoe? Gareth, can you come here? It's important. Markle called to the back room. What is it, Markle? A Eastern European voice called from the back. 2 Europeans in a gun shop in Southern America. Honestly, not the weirdest thing I've seen all month. 2 men from the Kazamoth estate. After a second of pin-drop silence, a smaller but no less dangerous looking man emerged from the back. Bald head, rough beard, body built like he wrestled trees since he was a kid. He walked up and looked us over. Kazamoth? The fuck does that mean? It's just some privatized woods, Isaac said, still confused. Poor man. Isaac, are you actually brain dead? I asked bluntly. What? The woods are freaky. So what if there's a cabin there? Honestly, this man must have been half buzzed. The Kazamoth estate is a bad omen. Gareth, the shorter man said in a thick, what I can guess was a Slavic accent. No one ever buys land outside of the town. An unspoken rule. There are things in the woods you don't touch. You don't disturb. Kazamoth must have not gotten the memo, because he bought a whole slew of it deep in the woods. And ever since the work started there, bad things have occurred. This shit's been ongoing? Jesus, Isaac said, shaking his head. The construction of his house and the walls took 3 months to complete, and the lives of 17 workers. Construction accidents happen. There were a lot of electrical facets to be built. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I knew it wasn't, but it wouldn't hurt to prod. Gareth chuckled and shook his head. Electrical utilities don't tear a man's intestines out and string them across trees like garland, or impale them through the mouth on branches, or rip them apart. Yup, Isaac said, nodding his head, mildly intrigued. That about adds up. If you boys work there, my advice, get on the next train ride out of town. No one can stop what's happening there. Gareth said, a sympathetic look piercing his, so far, cold demeanor. Sadly, I've got a job to do, Gareth. One that includes an upgrade in firepower. Think you can help us out? Gareth chuckled, waving us off. Markle helps them with whatever. They're dead anyways. Yo, bud? Isaac said, leaning back towards me. Hit up the sheriff's office around here or something. Report that missing kid. I'll take care of this. Before I could protest, Markle stepped in. Missing kid? I showed him the hat. If any more color could escape his face, it did just then. The local pub has a missing persons board. I'd hit there to see if it matches with anyone. Don't worry. He extended his hand. Papa Isaac's skilled in this. I've got this. I stared blankly at him. I've known you for a collective week. He said, unsure of what that meant. You want me to trust you with enough money to buy several T-60 tanks and leave you unattended? Look, Isaac interrupted. He pointed his index finger at me. I saved your life. Open that gate. Once again, I stared unimpressed. If I was some witch, I could have killed you by now. He had a point, about as strong as a cardboard. but still a point. I continued to wonder if I could trust him as I walked out the door, the cold, still air of the town immediately drawing me from the thought. A short stroll down the road, and I was looking at the thick iron door of the bar. Any windows too high on the walls and too small for anyone to look into. The inside wasn't grimy, but it sure was gritty. The darkness of the cramped bar only permeated by the LED lights on the walls and the few top-down bright lights on the ceiling. Old vintage metal signs, circle tables on the main floor with booths lining the far right wall. And at the far back, "Bring Them Home" was plastered across the top of a cork board in red letters. And on it, crammed together by the tens of tens, missing person flyers. Young, old, men, women, child, no discrimination. I don't even think a damned person noticed me as I walked over to it, looking around at the flyers. Danny. I don't know if the apparition, the decoy, was accurate, but I barely saw the kid. Then I saw him, bottom right corner of the board. Missing, a picture of a boy, round head, clean-cut hair, blue eyes with a smile. Name, Daniel Hothfield. Age, 9. Date of last sighting, 3rd of April, 2018. Note, last seen wearing red and yellow. Call. I took up my phone. The number listed the number as being his parental guardian, his mom. Barely got past the area code before I heard a voice call from my back right. "What you looking at, stranger?" I turned. A large man in a camo hat and coat sat at a booth along the wall, along with a woman and 2 men. The other 2 males looked up as the woman just continued to finish her drink. "I'm just, disturbing the dads looked down on around here." One of the other males perked up. A pit grew in my stomach as I just stared back, answering only, "Missing doesn't mean dead." The man in the camo hat simply scoffed and shook his head. "Boy, down here we don't like to make prank calls and fuck with missing kids. Go back to Chicago." I was at first confused, then realized my jacket had a Chicago patch on it. "I'm not pranking. I saw him out in the woods. Or at least, I've got a lead." "A lead?" The third guy shook his head, looking back at me. "Me and my boys went looking out there for a whole month. You expect me to believe from Grady-looking Sonsoff is the only one to turn up a lead? What, saw a ghost?" "Not quite," I answered, taking the hat from my pocket and holding it up. All the 3 men's eyes widened slightly. Camo hat nudged the woman to his right. "Marion?" She gazed at him. He gestured towards me, and something by her look told me she was Mrs. Hothfield. The talk was intimate, to say the least. I don't want to tell everything that was said, but here's what happened. Marion and her son Danny, along with a few friends, went camping. All went well, until he up and vanished. Not during the night, not from wandering off. Middle of the day. Turned their heads, turned back. He went missing in the middle of eating his food. The guys at the booth, hunters who went with, think he was kidnapped. Kept saying Danny saw someone out there in the trees. They couldn't see whoever it was, but Danny kept saying something about the man with no mouth. At least, it was one loose end. Some of the other cases on the board get weird. Woman vanished from her RV in the middle of driving down the road. Her shoe was identified and found over 20 miles in a nearby cave. Mother dropped off her baby at her parents' house. Came home to find Grandma and Grandpa deceased. The child was never found. Kicker was the cause of death was listed as natural, but never had any real reason. And finally, Missouri State Trooper Karl Brunson. There was a call about a woman lost on the road, staggering as if she was drunk. Reinforcements arrived to see the SUV ransacked and abandoned. Karl's hat was found, sliced and soaked in water in the middle of a dry day. Sent outside for some fresh air and to head back to the SUV. Stuff will mess with my mind if I let it sit for too long. When I arrived back to the vehicle, Isaac was there, eating a tub of something. "What's that?" I asked. "What's what?" he answered, in the middle of eating. "Your food." "Oh." He looked at the half-eaten tub of ice cream. "Some good stuff. How did you buy that?" "With the money you gave me." I stared blankly. "The money I trusted you to buy supplies?" He put his hands up defensively. "Hey." He stared at me, holding up one index finger and pointing it at me slowly. I saved you. So you keep telling me. I shook my head as I hit it to the back. Isaac continued to lean on the vehicle, pleased. Plus, it was like $5. You should see the weird shit they've got in stores here. You know the bookstore is selling a real Necronomicon. He was cut off as we heard a sound of a car driving up behind us. My hand froze and gripped the trunk as I saw it was a sheriff's car. Probably not the best time to flash 300+ pounds of ordnance. The cruiser stopped, the engine still running as a short yet husky sheriff exited the vehicle, flanked by a skinnier one with a handlebar mustache. "Evening, fellas," the main sheriff said, hands grabbing his collar as his partner sat on the hood. Isaac and I could only stare at each other. Isaac spoke. "Oh God, don't piss them off. You gonna shoot us?" I'm now certain I will one day die because of Isaac. The main sheriff furrowed his brow, looking over at his partner, then back at us, and simply chuckled. "Nah, we just do that to all outsiders. Truth is, a call came in that someone saw your friend loading more rifles than we've got at the station 10 times in that there trunk. Wanted to check and see if everything's alright." "Just shopping," Isaac said, finishing off his tub and tossing it in the nearby dumpster, which missed and dinged off the side along with the spoon. "Wait, where you get the metal spoon from?" The cop in the hood raised his eyebrows. "Shopping what? You're preparing for the Chinese to invade?" "Hunting," I corrected Isaac, and backed away from the truck. "Just hunting supplies." The main cop sputtered as he walked over, glaring into the back window. "I assume you're chasing a real nasty bear with that 30-06 right there." I looked shocked and non-verbally asked Isaac, "Really?" He shrugged and gestured back. "What? Ya boys want to be straight with me? 'Cause those dragon breath rounds are technically illegal." I dropped the discreetness as I looked at Isaac. "You actually bought incendiary shit?" "Okay, you know what?" Isaac said defiantly, pointing at me. "You want him dead or not?" I shook my head as I looked to the cop. "We're just stocking up on security." He laughed this time. "A lot of home defense. Where do you live?" "Up the road." His eyebrow rose as I continued. "Kazamoth Estate." The man's face grew serious as he backed away from the trunk. His partner got off the hood, straightening up. "Kazamoth Estate, huh?" The hood cop brushed himself off. "Probably gonna need more than that." The main cop looked right at me. "You security?" "Mm-hmm." "Your boss kicked the hornet's nest by weaseling in there." He gazed from me to Isaac, back to me. "We never saw you." Then without a word, both officers climbed back in their patrol car and drove away. Something told me, despite his jokiness, the look in Isaac's eye both unanimously agreed with me. This situation kept getting more fucked by the day. We picked John up, neighbor no longer on the porch, but peering at us from the front window. We asked John, but he was confused. The guy slinked back from the windows before he could see. It's been a few days. Isaac and I have looked around the house defenses, and we're trying to get things sealed up. We've got a checklist, one of which includes scanning the trail over and recovering the lost ATV. Speaking of which, that's in an hour. Been quiet so far. Let's see if it remains that way. Yes, I am alive. I guess to rest any fears. No, I did not get killed, possessed, kidnapped, or anything of the sort. Yet. My absence from logging. Is logging the right term? Charting? My routine of keeping you guys informed with what's happening here started at first, because cleaning up the aftermath from the storm with just 2 people took as long as you'd expect. At first, things started getting... well, I'll tell you. Our minds a bit confused from our little shopping trip to the town. John in more than fine spirits and a trunk full of guns. We were all at relatively high morale. Until, well, we reached the gate. Now, the gate and wall itself was intact. And even then, none of the scratches or claw marks on it really disturbed us. No, it was snowing after the storm about a week ago. We had cleaned out the front of the compound. So when we pulled up, and all of the trees in a 10-foot radius around the gate were clawed, battered, and gutted. We knew something decided to show up while we were gone. The heck's all of this? Isaac rolled down his window and took a look at the near 20 mutilated trees around us. I'd been in war both across seas and on home turf. I knew this could only mean one thing. They're sending a message. We hid it inside. And well, the yard, house, and everything inside of the walls was unharmed, even as the fog and mist from the hard rain still clung over the estate grounds. John hid it up to the house as I circled back with Isaac. Time to look at what he bought. And well, Jesus, boxes of packaged firearms in both wooden crates and plastic gun cases, ammunition boxes looking like they belong in a US military base rather than the trunk of a poor rent-a-cop and his hick cohort. And tons of tons, from what my experience is a little more than across the lines of illegal firearms. The sound of the quiet forest around only permeated by the clicking of a large gun case as Isaac opened it, with eyes as giddy as a child on Christmas. Let's see what they think of this, he said as he flipped the top of the case open and showed me a grade A man killer. The 30-06 rifle round has been a seriously deadly armament now just for over a century, being used in everything from machine guns to rifles that can knock out your truck's engine. So when he pulled out that hunk of a battle rifle and I gazed around, I wondered, if all of this failed, then what in actual hell was going to stop the Dwight? Isaac? I peered around the SUV while Isaac continued to inspect all the hardware he purchased. John? I called back. He just gazed at the doorknob. Shit, thought it was just a pea shooter. I grabbed a small pistol from the car's glove compartment and hurried up. I wasn't greeted with some monster, nor a ghost, goblin, or forest ghoul. Just yet another message. A dog collar hanging from the doorknob, a good 20 or 30 meters inside of the impermeable security wall, with the name Richie carved into its dog tag. It's not the obviously scary things that haunt you. It's the out-of-place ones that get under your skin. And boy oh boy, I was preparing myself to see a lot of that shit for the next few days. The storm has completely shaken up the forest. Branches, rocks, hell, even fucking entire trees had collapsed onto the miles-long perimeter path surrounding the estate. And due to public land over-regulations, the deputy enforcing them like an absolute fucking prick, he stated, the staff of the Kazamoth estate grounds must clear and maintain their trail to meet county standards. And you get the gist. And due to the fact that no one wants to stick their heads in the woods, besides Isaac and I, that meant this was going to be a lengthy process, even more so now that we were down one entire ATV. 3 days after we arrived with our new equipment, Isaac and I hit the trail. Standard stuff at first. Move the boulder, clear the tree branch, scare off the leapfrogging naked man with a rifle shot into the air, hook a chain from the top side of a tree to the rear of the ATV, and painstakingly move it over to the side of the trail. Pretty standard affair. Until one day, few hours past noon, we came across a monstrous oak tree. And I mean, a giant fucking oak tree. Don't know how the hell the storm managed to uproot this thing, but it was laying straight across the trail, full head of branches and all. We tried hooking up the chain, and I gave it my best shot, trying to push from the other side, but all we got was the ATV kicking up tons of trail dirt and half an hour wasted. No good, I said as Isaac turned off the ATV and climbed over it, sitting on top. Head back to the house, grab the chainsaw. We were gonna have to do this the hard way. Isaac looked around, paranoid. You sure? I knew what he was asking. You sure you want to sit here in the middle of these woods, alone? A nod of my head. And although hesitantly, he rode off. If I knew anything about these woods from the past month, it was safer to sit on the tree when the sun was high in the sky than for it to be pitch black. Or at least, that's what I tell myself, despite my gut instincts and the pit in my stomach saying otherwise. I checked out the roots of the tree, wanted to see just how deep they were, in case we were gonna have to cut it in half, or if we could possibly just deroot what was left and drag it out. It was clear out of the dirt alright, but not by any sort of storm weather. The dirt was freshly dug. You could tell because plenty of other trees were covered in dry mud and smelled of rain, moss, and sludge. This one, the dirt was dry, and the wood was mutilated. Bite marks severed remaining roots hitting into the ground. Crude scratch marks covered the bottom of the trunk. This wasn't the work of Mother Nature. The sound of breaking branches gaining quickly on me from behind drew my attention, like the sound of a grown man sprinting dead at me. I turned, and despite what I said earlier about my trigger finger, I fired off a set of rounds. Nothing. Not a goddamn soul in sight. Whatever rounds I fired off, at least one impacted a tree, because besides the clear forest view I had, the sound of the bullet ripping through the oak wood and bark flying everywhere painted a pretty clear picture. This was all a distraction, trying to halt our progress. I stepped back onto the path to hear the familiar sound of an ATV hitting down this way. Isaac stopped, a branch cutter, chainsaw, and other equipment strapped to the back. "You alright?" he asked. I didn't even look him in the eyes, too focused on gazing around at the forest. "Yeah." I exhaled harsh, steam visible in the only relative cool forest air. "Let's get going." We were making good progress, despite the tight schedule we had to run on, not wanting to get caught out there at night. So good in fact, that by yesterday, we managed to clean a mile and a half up the eastern side of the estate trail. Passing right by Isaac's former camping spot, I stopped the ATV, right around where I was last time. I knew because the heavy brake marks were still somehow mildly embedded into the trail. Isaac gazed around confused. "What?" I jotted my head over to the large, short cliff face. "Wanna see if you left anything?" He gazed over to where I was looking inside. "Seriously? Couldn't hurt." He muttered under his breath, shaking his head as he hopped off and walked through the trees at the ready. I simply just turned off the ATV and quickly made my way through. As we rounded the cliff face, it was strange. He left nothing behind, that was for certain. But what I don't remember was him cleaning up his extinguished fire, or the ring of rocks around it, or the stumps he cut down. The entire area looked like it was completely untouched, and that was only a week ago. Isaac didn't seem to notice this. What he did notice was something by the rock face that I didn't. "Dwight?" he said in a tone I could recognize as anxious. New for him. "What's up?" I said, turning around, and then my brain shut off for a split second as I saw it. A cellar door. Barring some minor scratches and weathered marks, it was a near-perfect condition cellar door. A large wooden bar kept the handles closed, and the entire thing was connecting to the cliff wall, right where his tent was. "You didn't raise your tent over that, did you?" I said, already knowing his answer. Isaac shook his head in response. It should be noted, as much as I only check in periodically, Isaac's demeanor, his slightly jovial, jokey trucker sense of humor, is how he carries himself. So for me to look him in the eyes and see a grown man with a shotgun in his hands, looking like a scared child, well, let's see what's inside. Isaac looked at me, silent, but his wide eyes spoke for himself. "What?" I asked. "Not like we can just leave this shit out here. What if this is where the bastards are sleeping during the daytime?" I asked myself the other side of that question as I shouldered my rifle and pulled the wooden bar off. What are we gonna do if an army of angry ghouls waited on the other side of that door, waiting for a couple of schmucks to open it? Guess we didn't need to really worry about, because when I opened the door, Isaac aiming down the sides of his shotgun, it opened to nothing. A smooth, solid rock face. Hell, it didn't even look cemented over, or like rocks were dumped to bury it. It just looked like someone built a cellar door and never dug down. I laughed, honestly. Kinda funny, both of us pissing ourselves, and then opened the door to that. I shook my head, and was about to give Isaac some crap for getting even me a bit unnerved, until I saw his face. Now, like I said, Isaac's usually a pretty funny guy. In one part, his sense of humor. Another part, even when he saw what laid outside the gate that night a week ago, he still found some time to take the piss out of the danger of it all. So to see him standing there, gazing at a featureless rock surface, probably looking how I was when I saw the things during the lightning flash, "Isaac?" I asked, only to see his breath was heavy, his now sweaty hands clutching the shotgun. "Isaac, for the love of—" He aimed the shotgun at the rock face. "There's nothing there." Thinking quick, I scrambled, pulling the far door shut and kicking closed the other door. Isaac followed up by nearly dropping his goddamn gun and hastily putting the wooden bar back across the cellar doors, and then stepped back, nearly vomiting as he tried to catch his breath. "Isaac?" I asked. The man buckled over as he shook his head. "Isaac, what the fuck did you see?" And he simply shook his head. "We're getting out of here." He walked back up the path to the trail. I called out again. "Isaac!" He still won't tell me what the fuck happened. So, we finally reached it. Nearly a week of trying, trail clearing, meeting the last dangerous but still just as weird inhabitants of the forest, all culminated to us finally reaching the northern curve of the path. And surprisingly, it was barely touched. We expected some weird shit. Hell, I expected some sort of pentagram made of trees, rocks, and rabbit corpses. But no, nothing. We rounded the bend, and I braked. Part of me really wanted to try and salvage that ATV. Not like shipping is quick out to a dead-end area like this. And those state-of-the-art literal trailblazers aren't cheap. But sadly, my hopes were dashed. It wasn't in the path anymore. Barbed wire was still there, and chunks of the tire were still attached. The ATV was, off to the side of the trail, in the tree. I think the chassis was scattered across the ground between the trees. The damned bastards spied at us, ripped that vehicle apart, and spread literally every last part of it across the damned forest ground. I sighed, turning off the ATV as I buried my face in my hands and rubbed my eyes. God damn it. I slapped the handlebars as I climbed off, Isaac looking around. "Sure did a number on it," I said, kicking over one of the tire rims. "Yeah." I hit it over to what I could tell was the engine block, or what was left, and had to pull it out from a small pit in the ground. But I freed it. God, did it stink. A slightly black coating all over the block. "You feel that?" Isaac blurted out as he gazed out at nothing in particular. I gazed up. Inspecting the block must have really distracted me, because I didn't notice at first. He gave me a look that just said, "Really?" I looked around, and I felt it. The burning sensation. The paranoia that causes a man to freak out when this isolated. The feeling of being watched. But that wasn't what really unnerved me. It's the fact, not a bird, not a cicada, not a goddamn sound could be heard around us.
"Hey, Dwight?"
I remember John's voice piercing that sound, his voice almost bellowing through the radio. I stood up, tucking the engine block underneath my arm as I walked over to the ATV, my free arm grabbing the radio. "What's up, John?"
"You've got a friend at the gate."
The scraping sound of me forcing that damned black shit-coated ATV hunk onto the bed of our good ATV was halted. "Friend?" I asked, a pit forming in my stomach.
"Yeah, your friend says he knows you from Jordan? Name's Clancy." "Dwight?"
John called out from the radio several times. But I was already on the damn ATV so fast, I think Isaac had to nearly jump on from being left behind. John asked again.
"Dwight, what's wrong?"
"Lock the door to the room, and don't talk to it. Don't look at it. Don't fucking breathe near that microphone." I barked into the radio.
"But what?"
"Just do as I say." Silence answered from the radio, but I could tell he got the message. Isaac was struggling to hang on as the vehicle bounced off the freshly cleared, but still just as rugged path. In fact, it wasn't until I braked hard on the gravel driveway that I realized he'd been trying to talk the entire way back. "Jesus, Dwight, the fuck's wrong?" Isaac said as he stumbled off with me, as I took my gun off its sling and put it stock on my shoulder. "Talk to me, soldier boy. Who the fuck's Clancy?" I aimed down the sights as I scanned the nearby area, making my way to the receiver on the gate. "Clancy was part of my platoon a few years back, when I was part of the infantry." I could see out of my peripheral vision. He looked confused. Maybe he didn't put two and two together. "And? What? A shapeshifter? Maybe it overheard you two on the phone or something." "Impossible." "Why?" I lowered my gun and looked him dead in the eyes. Clancy and a few of his comrades died back in 2010, an IED. I could see the tension in his entire body die down as he lowered his arms. Pulled him out of the truck myself. I remember shaking my head as I headed over to the receiver, gazing into the black lens of the camera. I hadn't spoke a word about him since the damn day. The kicker wasn't just that. The receiver was clear, sure. I even checked with John. The damn 4K camera was still in check. The speaker. It was the fact that right where he said my old battle brother should be standing, a circle of dead grass laid, a damn stark contrast to the green around it. I've needed some time, understandably, to swallow this fucking pill down. Like I said, sorry. Picked myself up, started charting this over the course of the past few days. That's odd. Lights are flickering. I'm gonna post this in case our power goes out. I promise I will be back sooner than last time. This is far from over. You know the saying, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back? Half a step forward, a kick to the gut sending us 10 feet back. That's our situation right now. At least, that's how I would acquaint it. Things finally happened, and the site's fucking post screen glitches out. Don't know if it's coincidental or... Anyways, to start off, remember the flickering lights and the slight power dip from last time? Well, it started to be a routine nowadays. A light bulb here, a flickering of one of the monitors. Then it started to get worse. The front room TV would zap off, a bedroom clock, and the only bedroom clock would reset. Started getting so bad even Isaac got tired of it. Stupid $1 billion piece of shit. He goes on about every time he stomps down the stairs, only to see the generator is at top condition. He notes a few things. He feels like he's being watched. The faces in the concrete keep looking at him funnily. As he swears, he sees the walls in different materials every time he walks up and down stairs. Honestly, he needs to stop his drinking habit. Although, maybe not everything was due to his liquor. Early today, I was checking on the engine block in the security room. Isaac was muttering to himself, or something, and the white noise of all the cameras and monitors grazed my ears as I continued to work, trying to scrape that black gunk off the metal. I was doing well, even had a few samples. Then, the power went out. You know that feeling of dread? The sudden, oh shit, moment? It started to form as I saw the monitors, one by one, started to go a bit haywire. And then all of the noise and the lights cut out, and I was left in a void of darkness, sitting at the desk, my inspection tools in hand. My eyes dotted, trying to adjust as I slightly panicked from a noise in the corner that I then learned was just Isaac hurrying out of his tent. Fucking shit, fuck, god damn it, I told you, he said, stumbling out of the canvas and light fabric teepee. Honestly, he just needs to move into one of the rooms. Can't blame him though, place has an aura. Regardless, I grabbed the rifle to the side of my desk, the automatic one, the one I said I would only use in case of a home invasion. As I tapped the damn flashlight onto it, I could hear Isaac shuffling through his back, grabbing an old weathered 5-shot. Alright, let's go get these ghosts. There was a number of things wrong with that sentence. Most I chummed up to the alcohol on his breath. Bud Light. Ugh. You can't shoot ghosts. I muttered to him as I carefully opened the door and checked the hallway. And put on some fucking pants for Christ's sakes. Isaac then put on a coat. This man is going to get me killed. We both moved out, quickly checking some of the ground floor rooms. I took the lead. Isaac kept my ass covered. Nothing. Not a goddamn thing. Hell, the front door was still locked and everything in the living room was in one piece. I gazed up at the tall ceiling of the main room. John, you there? John answered back by shining a flashlight off the banister. The power go out? It was then Isaac pulled one of the heavy curtains open and a bright wave of light shined through. Not all of it apparently. The exterior wall lights were still on and the loud sound of the generator was chugging unstrung. It was a bit of a contingency Theodore and I had in case of a power surge. With all things considered, lined up pretty well with the situation. What happened? John asked from the floor above. Don't know. Blackout? Some crazy truck driver run into a power line or something? Isaac suggested as he peeked out, half leaning back and forth. I walked over to the window and peeked out. Could be. No. I pointed to the far-off lights, shining just through the top of the trees. Town's lights are still on. Damn ghosts must have knocked out the power. Isaac burped into his hands as he spun the cylinder of his revolver. John, stay in your room. We're gonna go busting. I'm gonna have to work fast. I noted. Surge generator will only keep the outside electricity on for a few hours. Psh, like the guys outside are afraid of electric anyways. Haven't seen any of them for weeks. Remember? Isaac's attempt as group reassurance was met with the slight flickering of one of the floodlights. Only slight. And then... laughing. Giggling. Chuckles. The inhuman voices that came far off in the dark forest that sounded like it took an old man's laugh and turned the pitch down way too low. Whatever was out there knew our situation somehow and knew we were a threat away from losing our safety net. And inside the house, silence only filled the void between us before I stated, assertively, John, go back in your room. I believe a while ago I talked about what was truly scary and creepy, most notably in the woods. It isn't the obvious, it's the out of place. For darkness, it's not the actual black void you stare into that gets under your skin. It's what lies behind, what you think lies behind. So when Isaac and I stood at the top of that staircase, gazing down, my rifle's flashlight only just barely illuminating the back wall, you can imagine the atmosphere. We're gonna die, Isaac said as I took the lead, stepping down for a few steps, rifle shouldered. We're gonna die and it's gonna possess us. Maybe it was his liquid courage failing him. Nevertheless, Isaac closed the door behind us as I heard him pull the hammer back on his piece. Well, has to do the latter in order to accomplish the former, right? I asked, some sort of attempt to lighten the mood. The truth is, the flashlight did nothing, like actually nothing. Sure, it gave some light, but a small beam on a stairwell this dark, trying to light up a room with a laser light? All I saw as we both carefully moved down, step by step, was the rough concrete wall at the bottom. I kept pacing back in my mind. Just turn right and hit to the generator. Turn right and get to the generator. As Isaac and I reached the bottom of the stairs, my boots hitting the wooden planks at the bottom, I huffed out. Right, let's get going. Right before my face slammed into a brick wall. I stumbled back into what I then saw was a bookcase. A bookcase? I then remembered the basement didn't have floors furnished with wood. Isaac looked around. I'm guessing his eyes adjusted to the short distance he could see and said, Okay, I'm buzzed, but even I know something's off. Indeed it was. What was supposed to be a basement was now a library. My nose aching, I lifted my rifle and pointed the light around. Strangely, the flashlight now worked as you would expect, illuminating while giving off peripheral light, but showed not the basement we knew, but the library. Lines of shelves filled a large rectangle area, and whether it was the dust in the air, sound almost seemed muffled. The hell's going on? Isaac broke the thick silence, gave me some relief knowing that he hadn't vanished or anything. Spotting a doorway at the other end of the library, there was only one thing we could do. Press on. Part of me wondered what would greet us on the other side of the library door. A black void. The same room 1,000 times. Horrific ghouls. All kinds of variables your mind throws together. Instead, we were greeted by a small turn-of-the-century kitchen. There was an old black stove, racks hanging from the ceiling, a wooden table with what seemed to be a butcher's knife sticking out. It wasn't a dream. It was real. As crazy as this shit was, we were living it. As we made our way around the table, towards what I could see was a door across, Isaac hurriedly pressed into me. His left hand, his free hand grabbing onto the collar of my shirt. I paused. The fuck's up? Isaac responded by looking around behind us in the strange, disconnected hip movements drunk people usually make. He kept his pistol pointed outwards behind us as he leaned in to talk to me. Something's behind us. The hairs on my neck stood up as I gazed around behind us. Not a goddamn thing in this medieval fucking kitchen besides us. Well, I thought for a moment, coming up with the words. We keep moving forward then. With that, I walked forwards through the strange kitchen, Isaac following, his hand still gripping a shirt on my shoulder. As we both neared the door, the pitch black void like doorway, I poked the barrel of my rifle in, flashlight attached. Almost seemed like it went through a curtain. Couldn't see the light on the other side. Retracting my barrel, I took a leap of faith and poked my head in. To see we were in a goddamn tent of all things. What the fuck? All I could mutter as I stepped through. And honestly, it was a tent. Isaac passed through with me. I could see through his haze, even he was weirded out by the scene. It was a small rectangle tent of sorts, about 10 meters long and 6 meters across at each end. 6 bunk beds lie across the longer sides, and they were accompanied by 6 metal chests. In between the space of each bunk, there laid a dirty and smeared plastic square window block. And the kicker? No door at the other end of the tent. Well, shit. I looked around. The tent unnaturally uniform and sealed to the floor. Better double back. Chief? I turned to see Isaac now staring at a flat tent wall. That's a no-go. I walked up to the tent wall and pressed a hand up to it. Nothing. I even took my rifle, stuck and bashed the wall. The tent fabric must have been made of starch because it only moved so many feet. I'll just cut our way out, I said, defiant to all this bullshit. I took out my knife. Traditionally made for skinning in outdoors activities, but I think the creators could give me a pass on this one. As I shoved my knife through, Isaac started to gaze around the tent. A few seconds after, he asked me, "What's up with that mask?" I turned my head, and I'll admit, a chill went up my back. The third bunk, the middle one on my left, had at the time I thought was a haunted snowman mask. Must have been some sick joke. White skin, eyes were black beads like coal, some sort of hole I guessed where the carrot should have gone, and jagged teeth, a la a Creepypasta or something. Hell, the more I looked at it, the more I got a kick out of it. Even laughed. Well, I guess Hallows Eve is around the corner. I turned back to cutting through the tent wall, only to see the gap I cut through was now sealed, and my knife laid on the floor. You want to play it like that, huh? Fine. Once again stabbing my sharpened metal through the fabric. I started to cut upward, hoping to carve out a small doorway in which we could exit from. But then, I noticed something creeping through the crack. Water. Cold, melted water. A breeze of bitterly stale air. And snowflakes. The hell? I muttered as I peeked through. When we descended those stairs into the basement, the air was still cool, and the leaves had yet to fall off the trees. What I saw outside? I don't know where the hell this tent was. Might as well have been out in Canada. But the snow was near a meter high and surrounded the tent like a flood. What in the I was cut off as Isaac chimed in, apparently looking through one of the smeared windows. That's a lot of snow. Isaac more or less summed up my observations. I backed off from the crack, retracting my knife and turned to him. How the hell did this tent get all the way out here? How'd they set it up in all the snow? Isaac didn't answer. Instead, he simply stared around, head bobbing in a half-alcohol gaze. Hey Dwight? He asked. Yes, I answered. He gazed back at me, his eyes squinted as he asked. This tent look a lot more beat up than it did a minute ago? What do you? I pried my eyes from him and looked around. The light seemingly dropped 7 hours into the night, as all light from the tent nearly vanished. Moonlight shone through much clearer, but also much more broken plastic tent walls, and various holes in the previously intact tent surface. I shone my rifle's light around and took in the change. Couldn't possibly get more weird, I muttered, and I guess I must have jinxed us. Dwight? I turned back to Isaac, who simply pointed to my left. My eyes followed slowly, moving like a choppy stop-motion picture as I gazed over. A large beam of moonlight showing through the space inside of the third bunk laid a hole in which the snowman mask I stated earlier seemingly hung. It wasn't until my mind slowly pieced it together bit by bit, dread started to sink in. Then, through the broken moonlight of the plastic window just to my right, I could see a shadow zip right across. I quickly hurried to my feet, Isaac aiming his pistol dead in front of him. I shouldered my rifle and did the same, seeing we had no exit flap, and going outside probably wasn't the smartest idea. Snow can sometimes be a terrifying setting, especially at night. The snowflakes falling creating a wall that limits your vision, the cold biting at your skin and soul. The worst part of it for me is the silence. One might think a quiet environment would allow you to hear an enemy or a threat nearby. But a little bit of science has shown me snowfall stops sound waves, making it hard to hear around you. And right now, the near 3 feet of snow outside the tent and the constant rain of flakes outside made it hard for me and Isaac to hear each other across the small rectangular tent.
Isaac?
So when a voice sounded from the far distance, elongated and sounding impersonated, it caught me off guard as it did Isaac himself. Boy, did he look startled. Turning to the tent wall behind him, lowering his gun, Guy went from my hardy partner in crime to looking like a deer in the headlights. Barely anything could be heard besides Isaac's heavy breathing as his eyes dotted.
Mom? Isaac?
The voice sounded again, less strained and more, well, normal. Isaac quickly walked over to the tent window and pressed his eyes up to it.
Mom? It's me, Isaac.
Isaac, back away from the window, I said calmly, wanting to make less noise than he was now. But Isaac continued to look outside.
Mom, is that you?
His eyes seemed to zero in on something outside.
Isaac, get away from the window,
I shouted. But he couldn't hear me, too caught up in his own world, too caught up to avoid what happened next.
Isaac?
Cold hard fear shot up my spine as I heard the voice, distorted and warped, sound out from the tent wall right behind me. My instincts kicked in as my body lurched forward, aiming my rifle at the wall. But before I could even fire a shot, Isaac screamed. He doesn't know what happened, mostly due to the nature of his injury. But Isaac fell back from the tent wall, clutching his eye as blood started to pour from it. Panic set in as I quickly rushed over, yelling at him to let me see it. But Isaac kept his hands pressed up against it, probably a smart move. But we didn't have time to think about that.
Isaac?
A voice that sounded far too deep to be a human's voice, something straight out of the nightmare fever dreams we had as a kid, came from the other end of the tent. My eyes shot over as I saw the hole I'd cut into the fabric start to rip open. Appendages that looked like, well, from the quick glance I got, a skeleton, but not really, started to rip it open. I grabbed the knife I'd used before and stabbed right into the fabric, cutting through and started to tear down through it. All the while, I could hear whatever the fuck was on the other end continue to call out.
Isaac? Isaac, come home.
As my knife reached the cold hard dirt ground, I ripped Isaac off the ground and damn near chucked him through the newly created hole, not caring if there was snow, rain, the void, or whatever the fuck else was on the other side. Then I grabbed my rifle, seeing the thing had gotten a horrifying arm through as I threw myself into the exit wall as well. I felt myself go into freefall. My eyes shut as I felt cold air hit me. And I fell hard, face first into the concrete floor of the basement. I shook my head as I bolted to my feet, grabbing my rifle, standing to see Isaac had a pea shooter aimed, his blood all over it, his hand, and his face. And we were both staring at one of the old paintings, an old painting half covered by one of the burlap sacks. I gazed over at Isaac, who gave me a look that said exactly what I was thinking. What the fuck? Seems to be the universal reaction to things around here. Walking over, I ripped the burlap off and tossed it to the side. The painting was of a clearing in the middle of a snowy pine forest. Snow falling heavily from the sky, as well as blanketing the ground around. A small rectangular tent with a campfire outside. Around this point, I was just about done with whatever the fuck was going on, not even knowing how long we'd been down here. I eyed the area around us and saw the generator through the darkness, not 12 meters away. "Cover me," I ordered as Isaac held his piece back to me, and I locked in as I hastily flipped each switch before powering back on the touchpad. I locked in and was ready to power the generator back on. Then I remembered the security camera. Every time a person logs in, the camera captures a still for security purposes to ensure if anyone is tampering with the generator. I quickly tapped on the stored files icon and started scrolling through, and what I saw should have been impossible. The only way to access the generator is by directly going up to the thing, logging in, and shutting it off. So, when all the login images besides my mug showing up showed an empty room, I was, well, I shouldn't be surprised of anything at this point, but I was. "Jesus Christ, you done yet? Tired of smelling my irony ass blood," Isaac chimed in. Now wasn't the best time to start wild speculation, so I simply headed over to the diagnostics and waited as the generator hummed back to life. All that Grace does was a calm noise at first, and then you could hear every damn device in the house power back on as the lights flickered back to life above us. And hell, after tonight, I damn near chuckled out of pure joy. Thank fucking Christ. My celebration was cut off though, as Isaac fired off a few rounds from his piece. The sound waves be damned. Guess the area was so small around us. Sounded like a fucking car exploding right next to us. As I stumbled forward into the wall, I plucked my ears and gazed back to see whatever Isaac was targeting. And all I saw was a grey concrete wall with 3 new smoldering craters in the side. I shook my head, hoping to alleviate the ringing in my ears as I marched right up to him.
Isaac, what the actual fuck?
His head shot to look at me, and through the buzzing in my ear canals, all I could hear him say was,
"What? What the fuck were you shooting at? Why are you yelling? Because you deafened me."
Isaac stuck one of his fingers to his ears, trying to, I guess, open it more somehow, as he said,
"I saw a woman." "A what?"
I asked, less deaf and more surprised.
"A woman. Black hair, dead-looking skin."
He shook his head.
"She just appeared right as the damn lights came on and, I don't know, disappeared when I fired."
I gazed over his shoulder, then remembered the place he fired off those rounds corresponded with that little incident I had down here over a month ago. Situation soaked in as we headed upstairs. The security room showed no breaches occurred when the backup generator was damn near empty. We had been down there for around 3.5 hours. I told Isaac and John to get their stuff. It's occurred to me the situation here is getting out of my expertise, so I'm following up with one of the leads I had in town, a herbalist named Roseanne, who's apparently got a knack for the paranormal. If I and my small band of cabin dwellers are going to beat what's out there, we're going to need more than some guns and equipment. Better than nothing, to be honest. God willing, this site doesn't give out. I'll update you on how it goes. If not, well, I blame you guys for my sudden death in the woods. We aren't retreating. We're advancing in another direction. That's what I'm branding this little expedition. It's become clear to Isaac and I that the anomalies descending upon the Casimoth estate are growing more and more untamable by our current means. Sure, we could constantly dump thousands of rounds into the beings that lurk outside of the walls, but what about the ones that lurk within them? The entities that seem to be tampering with the machines we're using. The ones that showed me they can easily rip apart the electrified wires I trust to protect the land. We need someone who can aid us in this, someone who's skilled in identifying the paranormal, and who hopefully will have the means to stop it. And I knew only one from local sources. A herbalist named Roxanne ran a shop on the far side of the town. So we loaded up the SUV. Isaac brought along a duffel bag he called his necessities. I swear, I saw something moving inside. John brought an overnight bag. I closed the trunk of the SUV, my eyes centered on 3 black cases in the back of the SUV. The sound of the door shutting snapped me back to reality. Time to go. I hopped into the driver's seat, starting up the engine, which after a moment finally roared and kicked into start. I looked at Isaac. He was ragged, mangy. The entirety of his eye was bandaged to hell. I had insisted we take him to the hospital, but Isaac protested, saying that his literally bleeding cornea wasn't that big of an issue. What a trooper. Sitting there, glazed over eye and a beer in his hand. The gates started to open, and I checked the car's touchscreen GPS, trying to see where in this town this Roseanne's shop was. Isaac chimed in. "The fuck is that?" I felt dread overcome me as I gazed up from the small screen and looked up. In the center of the driveway, laid a wheelchair, sitting upright, facing the gate, dead center of the driveway. "Should I run over it?" I asked Isaac, who just took a swig of his beer. John picked over his seat around this time. What if it's a trap? Indeed, what if it was? I unbuckled my seatbelt, the sound of it sliding back as I opened the door, stepping outside, and I walked up to it. As I did, something else became clear to me. The chair was surrounded by various articles of clothing. Children's clothing. Bonnets, raincoats, shoes, a dirty jack-o'-lantern bucket. All of them looking like they were dipped into a peat bog, surrounding this shiny ladder. Clean. I walked around to the front of the car and approached it. The crunching of the gravel was a white noise as I approached it. Then, the sound grew louder and louder. The gravel underneath my feet was almost deafening as I stepped outside. Then it hit me as the thing was 3 feet away. It's 12 p.m., early October. The fauna is still green and cool, and the only thing I could hear was my footsteps and the sound of the car humming behind me. Not a sound from the forest. Not a bird, a cricket, a squirrel. This was no longer the security guard, the warden of the land patrolling his grounds. I was a small man in unfriendly territory. I stared down at the chair, angry from all of this bullshit. I grabbed it and heaved it leftwards. It cracked off a tree before rolling into the grass lopsided. And then, I stared down at the clothing. Why? Actually, fucking why? Why this? Why these kids? Why any of this? My warrior instincts kicked in as a tree branch pierced the dead silent air to my 8 o'clock front right of the gate. I withdrew my pistol and aimed. Nothing. Still trees. Grass. Nothing.
"This is private property,"
I yelled, my voice one of the only sounds audible, echoing off the surrounding trees. Then, from my left, I could hear an exhale. I spun, pistol aimed. Nothing. The chair was bait, but who said it? Back to the gate. Nothing could get in. Surely I'd see it before.
"Hey!"
My soul jumped out of my skin as I, a grown US Army veteran, proceeded to leap left like a scared antelope as a voice shouted right next to my ear and fired to the right of my gate, several times, almost emptying my weapon. Shots went flying through the air. One impacted a tree, the other scraped off the wall, and then one nearly missed the metal stand of that motherfucking skeleton.
"Tim!"
I shouted at the inanimate object. I gazed at my pistol. Turns out, I was wrong. I did empty the magazine.
"Narc!"
The grating voice radiated through my skull as I ran my hand down my face, squeezing my temples as I stared up at him. Did he set all of this up? I gazed back at the wheelchair before locking eyes with the empty sockets of this thing.
"Timothy? What in the fu-"
Before I could finish my sentence, the passenger door of the SUV opened as Isaac emerged, peering over the gap.
"Are you okay?"
Isaac asked in a concerned tone.
"A little fucking startled. Why the fuck didn't you warn me?"
I said, more bitter at the sons of fucks sitting in the car that could let that happen than the calcium construct itself.
"Warn you about what?"
Isaac said, and voice drenched with confusion. I was taken aback, my head shaking in disbelief as I extended a hand outwards.
"The fucking skeleton?"
What skeleton? My eyes shot across from me. Nothing. Nothing there but a small pile of bullet casings. I was shocked? No, it was Tim after all. I looked through the windshield at John, who had his headphones in and was busy with his phone. "Are you alright? You drunk?" Isaac called, the forest around us still quiet. "Yeah, just get in the damn car." The drive to town was fairly uneventful. I white-knuckled the steering wheel, expecting some sort of beast to finally say, "Fuck it," and charge the car, finally ready to end the charade. But it never happened. We reached the end of the dirt road. Isaac had found a Sharpie and quaintly drawn a skull and crossbones on his damaged eye. "There." He tossed the marker aggressively back into the glove compartment. "Now I'm a goddamn pirate." He does have the alcoholism to be one. Sorry, really not the time. As I turned onto the main road, I peered back at John. "John, we're gonna drop you off at your friend's house, just like last time. Is that cool?" John nodded, eyes fixated on his tablet as we drove. It's then Isaac chimed in, spinning around in his chair to meet John with his good eye. "Hey kid." The trucker rested his chin on the headrest, crossing his arms around the back of the seat. "How you holding up with all of this?" I looked back to see John pause whatever he was playing, pulling out his earbuds. "I mean, depends. How should I handle this?" John spun one of his buds in a circle by the cord. "Well, ghouls living outside your house, ghosts living in them. We still don't know if it was really a ghost." I slipped in, though you and him could probably write me a college seminar on why I'm wrong. "Shut up, skeptic. Anyways." Isaac then held one of his hands out towards Isaac. "Look, I know it's gotta seem odd with your dad leaving a minute ago, but Dwight and I will keep you safe. You understand?" John snickered. "Oh, I know that. You guys did buy enough guns to take over the town." That was not a good impression. I pried one of my hands from the steering wheel, scratching the back of my neck. "Yeah," I said, feeling a bit guilty. "We did flash a ton of hardware in front of the kid, whether the situation warranted or not." "They're in good hands, John." Isaac jabbed my right shoulder with his fist. "Hell yeah, self-defense only, bud. And with ghouls, it was always self-defense." I dare not mention how Isaac almost mowed down a group of hikers when we were clearing that trail of debris just a few weeks ago. We pulled up to the quiet little town, exactly as it had been since we last stopped in. A light mist from the mountains had traveled down, hanging over the town. A salt mill, smoke pouring out in the distance. The bar, neon lights flashing in the windows. And yet, not a goddamn person on the street. We came to a stop at an intersection, the armored-up Toyota slowing to a halt at the deserted crosswalk. I dropped one hand to the middle compartment to my right, leaving one hand on the steering wheel, tapping my fingers, anticipating the moment it would turn green. It didn't arrive quick. Me and my part-time trucker friend gazed around, John's fingers tapping on his tablet, along with the hum of the engine created this ambient white noise. I waited, expecting anyone to come around the corner. But it never happened. The mist from the rainy season created a distant wall that the streets blended into. And yet, silence and desertion was all that occupied it. I looked up. The light shone red. I gazed around, looked to John, still typing, looked to Isaac, eye bandaged, with some pus leaking out of the bottom, looked to the light, still red. I'd say if this were nighttime, we'd get jumped, but we both know the shit around here ain't afraid of hitting us in the day. Isaac said, uncapping the top to his bottom as he took yet another swig. Don't know if he's using it as a pain reliever, since its use as a confidence booster ultimately failed last night during our basement adventures. But regardless, he seemed to have an endless supply. My fingers tapped the leather-lined steering wheel. Isaac finally finished off the small bottle and then pulled out a flask from his back pocket. Why am I not surprised? My eyes dotted to the deserted streets, the milky gray and white mist wall obscuring what light behind. I swear, don't know if it was eye floaters, but I saw movement just behind the mist, out of the corner of my eye. My eyes snapped to the light. Green. I'm pretty sure I nearly floored the pedal as I peeled out of that stoplight. I pulled the SUV up in front of the house, same as last time, John gathered up his belongings, shoving them into his pool court backpack. He waved to us as he hurried up the sidewalk to the house. I cleared my throat. I was feeling dry, parched. The last time we came here, the town felt eerie, but had some semblance of, not sanctuary, but controlled chaos. Now, felt like I was dropping John off right in the middle of those goddamn woods. Across the street, the fish-eyed neighbor stood, watching him as he trundled up the steps into the house, then at us. He held a pair of hatch clippers and chopped mindlessly at the poor bush in front of him. So much so, he finally stopped when he nearly gutted it by cutting the main stem in half. Then, he dragged the clippers on the sidewalk as he shuffled up the steps, sliding into his house. What a charming fellow, Isaac said. Charming, sure. We arrived on the western end of town, right before a big stone bridge that crossed an even bigger river. It was a more suburban area. With a town this rural, is anything even suburban? Roseanne's herbalist shop was seemingly built into her own house, like those personal businesses some built in the middle of neighborhoods. The entrance was at the back. Isaac and I pulled into the driveway and walked towards the house. Isaac tossed his flask into the car and then pulled out another as he walked up the asphalt path. I swear he's going to kill his liver at this rate. A smell of violets, herbs, pierced the stale air of fall around us. Hanging from the side of the house was a stained glass sign reading Roseanne's Solutions. Above the red glass letters, a dark purple skull icon with a multitude of what I think were feathers floating around it. Huh, Isaac said as we both stared at it. That's comforting. I shut the car off, stepping out into the cool air and approached the back entrance. Isaac joined me. So, he said, stretching out his words. Going to a witch's hut on the edge of town. Tell me, you think she praises Cthulhu or Satan? Had this been weeks earlier, I would have decided against approaching what Isaac said, a witch's house. But this wasn't weeks ago, and we're now down options, several rounds, and one good eye. I knocked on the door 3 times. The paint on the door was chipped, showing a lack of maintenance. Her house was grown in. Large hedges, trees, plants, vegetables, all seemingly defiant to the autumn air were around her land. And yet, all neatly groomed and maintained. This would be any botanist's wet dream. Isaac balanced himself on the wooden railing of the back porch, scratching at the edge of his eye. Pus leaked out from the bottom, green and black in nature, against my previous hopes. Don't do that, I cautioned. Why? He said, shoulders slumping. Probably fuck like that for good anyways. He sounded far more defeated than usual, and I felt guilty. If I had just been quicker. I mean, on the bright side, guess he will get use out of his eye patch. Right, sorry. Again, not the time. My hand beat on the old wooden door of the building again, irritated this time. Roseanne? I called out. I looked at a schedule taped to the door. Roseanne's Solutions. Whenever the stars align, I will be at your 8. Monday to Thursday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Friday to Saturday, 24 hours. Sunday, midnight. Kind of odd hours, but Isaac said. He grabbed a rock, tossing it at the door, which bounced off with a large thud. Roseanne, open the hell up. Suddenly, the door shot wide open, the sound of heavy wind emanating from within. The door missed my face by nearly an inch maybe. While I stumbled back, the suddenness caused poor Isaac to topple back into the hedge, head first. I walked over to the banister. You alright? I called out. Isaac's hand rose from inside the bush like a submarine's periscope, giving a thumbs up. He painstakingly clawed his way out as I gazed at the door. A dim entranceway, cluttered with chests and plants, greeted us. And yet, no one else in sight to have opened the door. Yep, my assertion was correct. This definitely was a voodoo house. As we entered the building, the strange and exotic smells grew. Lavender, cherries, freshly cut soap. And I remember when I said cluttered. Isaac and I'd like to say we aren't particularly husky. But this place, we had to squeeze between trees and large boxes in order to get through. We finally reached a red velvet curtain, a piece of notebook paper pinned onto it. The inner sanctum. Isaac looked to me. I looked to Isaac. I then leaned in towards the curtain.
Roseanne?
Go away. A female voice came from behind the curtain. We're closed. We? I thought. Isaac chirped up.
Hey, listen lady. It's Friday. You said you were open all day today. Now open up.
There was silence for a few seconds, and then the candles and weak lights around us flickered.
No.
Frustration welled inside of me, and I'd finally had enough. I threw open the curtain and charged in, Isaac right behind me. As we entered, it was a makeshift laboratory. What looked like the living room was layered in plants head to toe, ceiling to floor, and a large table with pipes, glasses, tubes, burners, and strange liquids and concoctions rested. Through the ambient light of the candles and burners, I saw her. She stood at the back, hospital scrubs and a lab coat, with a wool poncho over her shoulders and a beanie covering her tan skin and dark long hair. And when she turned, she stared daggers into Isaac and I.
Does no mean yes where you come from? Get out,
she said. The candles around us flickered again.
You're the only person in town I've heard who can help us,
I argued, though it did little to quell her rage.
And why should I help you? Everyone in this town has problems. Everyone comes to me. And just because two scruffy-faced men burst in, that means I must help you?
She said, slamming down her glass vial hard. And it surprisingly, in retrospect, didn't shatter.
Lady, our problems aren't like the rest of the town's.
Remember that black gunk from the engine? Sealed in a Ziploc bag. Make that 2 bags. I held it up. Her eyes squinted, then widened as she held out her hand. I tossed it across the table, and she caught it and began inspecting.
Where did you?
She said in disbelief, almost like she had prior knowledge of whatever the fuck it was.
Casamoth Estate.
Oh. She dropped the bag of black gunk on the table.
I'm sorry, but whatever is happening there is far out of my range.
Why? Isaac bellowed out.
Just some weirdos in the woods, batshit phantoms, paintings that cut my fucking eye out. You do that whole flickering light shtick, and yet you're too afraid to help us. What makes it so weird from the rest of the town?
Took the words right out of my mouth. My redneck Cyclops friend. Roseanne crossed her arms.
Before Casamoth.
Theodore, is that his name? I nodded. Before he arrived, the woods were strange. But they were contained to the deepest reaches, the recesses we'd never journey to. However, I don't know what happened, but him building his property there riled up something. And now, even the town itself has been suffering. Her hand shot to her chin as she looked into the bag. Vaguely cryptic as that might be, Roseanne, I shoved my hands into my pockets. Our compound, a marvel of several millions of dollars in custom hardware, was breached. Not from the woods, but from the inside. It nearly took down all of our fancy defenses, and like Isaac said, it took his eye with it. Roseanne looked over to Isaac, his gauze and bandaged up eye. He smiled through his beard, giving her a thumbs up. She looked at me in the eyes, and I believe we understood each other. Or at least, she believed what I was saying. I want to. I would. But like I said, everyone in this town needs help, and I'm just one person. We got a custom battle wagon parked outside. Baby can hit 80 miles per hour despite being armored up like a tank. We'll give you a lift, Isaac said, offering up my car. Well, technically, Theodore's, but he left it to me, and I wasn't in the mood to argue ownership right now. She looked to me. You'd do that? I shrugged. If it'll get the ball rolling, let's go get your errands done. She laughed. Errands, yes. She held a hand up, slapping the other as she crossed her arms. Alright, let's do it. And that's how it happened. The engine's running now. Our professional witch doctor is inside collecting her things, and Isaac's taking a leak right in front of her house. Jesus, dude. Roseanne says she only has a handful of calls that have to be answered right this second. Then we'll head back to the estate. I don't know how cell service will be across the town. It's been spotty today. Strangely, it wasn't like that a few weeks ago before the mist. Might just be a waterlocked cell tower. Regardless, I'll update as soon as possible. This is the head chief and still sole member of the Cazamoth Estate Security Force, Dwight Nolan. Signing out.